I've got a bad feeling about this, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here,
And BlueDragonFive.
and welcome to our Solo, a Star Wars story spoiler cast. Da 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 da. This music is now part of canon. How you doing, Dragon? I'm just trying to lighten the mood.
I'm on the right side of the dirt.
All right, so, folks, there's no doubt about it. It is a divided time in the Star Wars community. And Dragon and I kind of represent sort of two sides of the faction, even though, Dragon, I'm going to throw your name under the bus here. You, like I, really like The Last Jedi.
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, that's like fighting words these days. But for the debate with Solo, Dragon, you're on the side of the coin where you had a blast with it. I'm on the side of the coin where not so much. Like, let's just say on my first reactions, I was basically checking my phone about halfway in, like, okay, how much longer do I have to sit through this? Dragon, I gotta say, I did see it a second time. I enjoyed it a little bit more. I wasn't checking my phone this time, but I still have no reason to ever go back and watch this movie ever again. Dragon, I'm sorry. It's just not doing it for me. So, but I feel like that's a good thing because I feel like some of the best podcasts we do are the ones where we disagree. So this should be a lively discussion here, folks, and probably a pretty long discussion. So strap yourselves in. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows, and just the all-around kind of wild ride that was the Solo: A Star Wars Story production. And so we're going to start kind of with the thesis, I guess. And so, Dragon, I guess, like I said, I kind of laid out kind of our opposing arguments, sort of like me being the side of the coin where it's like, I don't even necessarily think that it's a bad movie. I really don't at all. I didn't even think it was a bad movie the first time I watched it. I just feel like it's a very by-the-numbers movie, and I also have really nitpicky gripes with it, too. And I feel like it's a very weird, like... Dragon, this movie has, like, a really weird kind of... It's trying to serve to the lowest common denominator in terms of, like, entertainment. It's just like, here's some, like, blockbuster popcorn fare we're just going to throw in your face. But at the same time, it's got these, like, really, really obscure, nerdy, fan servicey Star Wars details to it. And Dragon, I'm sorry, you might have been won over by that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what you were won over by because, of course, we didn't really have a chance to go in depth with this movie yet. But the member berries weren't working for me this time around, man. They just weren't. It was just like I was just kind of I felt assaulted by the member berries by the end of this thing.
So you would say it did not bring you ground.
This movie is like, honestly, I can say for a fact this movie, out of all the live action canon Star Wars movies, this is the one that does break the least ground, including the prequels. It's a better movie than the prequels, but I think the prequels, all in their own way, broke new ground.
All right. Okay, I guess my kind of thesis on the whole thing is, so I've seen it, I saw it once, and I've definitely been stewing on it. I've been definitely sampling some opinions and reanalyzing and such. So I haven't seen it yet, but I'll be seeing it again, a few weeks or so. Anyway, so having had more time to kind of noggin it, I still kind of stand by, for the most part, I stand by my original opinion, where it's I had a great experience with it. It was still fun, still very fan servicey. I will absolutely agree. It's not needed. We don't need it all. But, it delivered what it promised, despite all the production issues, which I do think is impressive. I mean, despite all the stuff that was going on, again, I think it turned out, what was promising to deliver, and I had a good time with it. And look, I will agree. There's not a lot of substance here, but it's kind of a fun adventure romp, and it's entertaining. Yeah.
All right, so those are our opinions in a nutshell. I'm sure that this is going to be a very civil discussion moving forward. So Dragon, let's kind of talk about the big elephant in the room, the box office numbers for this thing.
Kind of the overall reaction that the movie's kind of been drawing from a lot of folks.
Sure. 84 million in its first 3 days, 106 million upon the 4 day opening day, late Memorial Day weekend. And I think you and I think our opinions kind of sum up the overall reaction that this is having from people. It's like people are divided on this movie, but even the people that like it, like you, aren't like over the moon about it and think it's the best thing ever, like any by any stretch.
Yeah, again, it's not Yates, but again, it was a good theater experience. I mean, no, like I want to make clear, I'm going to say that a couple times. I want to make it. Despite having a good like experience, like being surrounded by Star Wars fans enjoying it, I still just think I've heard this from a lot of other people who've seen the movie. They had a good experience watching the movie and just had like a good time with it in the theater. Again, didn't walk away with a lot of substance. So I just want to make clear, I'm not just like modeling all of my positive stuff after just that one experience, but. In regards to the box office, the way I usually look kind of like the worldwide gross and kind of how much money it's going to get in overall, and really look at the opening weekends. But I will echo this. So far, just the layman looking at it is that at least a week or so is a week or 5 days to a week have passed, and the movie still has not recouped its box office yet. I mean, its budget yet. It has not recouped its budget, which is a bad sign.
The thing you have to remember about this movie, Dragon, is that not only does it have to recoup its original budget, but
Has to
all the
deliver upon that.
reshoots on this movie, the massive amount of reshoots on this movie.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot all about
This
that.
movie
Yeah.
is an unmitigated disaster.
All I can really gauge from is that this, at least to me, seems I haven't really looked at the numbers, but it sounds like a no-brainer that this is probably the lowest grossing, or and absolutely probably will be the lowest grossing of the Star Wars movies. I think it goes without saying.
Adjusted for inflation, absolutely. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know how much the. I think the only thing that might rival that is the Clone Wars kind of they melded the three episodes into like the theatrical.
Okay, well that doesn't even count. Like
Well, that's
honestly,
what I'm just saying. If I'm saying of all, if technically maybe it counts, but regardless, I still say this is probably at the bottom of the heap. It looks like in terms of financials. So
I can definitively say that Solo is better than the Clone Wars.
yeah. So again, I would as to echo my thing before we get into kind of the implications of the box office. Again, I would say again in regards to it seems like the critics seemed I don't know. Again, I've heard kind of like critics kind of like in kind of like a 75% kind of C range with it, which I think is it's fair. And in terms of again audiences, again it's kind of the opinion that Tiki and I are, and I just feel if you go in knowing what you're going to get, you're going to come out happy. And again, I think it's where again a lot of people are really enjoying the movie, or at least have nice things to say about the movie.
Yeah, here's the thing, Dragon. I kind of like I walked in sort of expecting what I walked in expecting one thing, and I came out like I have very specific issues with it, but it's one of those movies. I have a feeling like this is like kind of like the Dark Knight Rises light for us, where it's like I had like with the Dark Knight, it's like kind of like the Dark Knight Rises. It's kind of like it's a bunch of different little issues building upon each other throughout the movie that by the end just kind of exhaust me and make a viewing experience not that fun. And I feel like it's the same sort of thing here, where you're kind of willing to look past the shortcomings of it. And I'm sort of just like, all right, look, I just like this is like a freaking house of cards that's about to tumble over. It's just fundamentally not sound.
Well, looking at the implication of the very low box office, so I think this may endanger the. Again, it sounds like an understatement. This may endanger the sequels they were planning, because they were planning like a solo trilogy. I heard like in the weeks.
Kenobi, man, that's I want a Kenobi trilogy.
You know, I want that Kenobi movie as much as you do. You know, I've been pitching that Kenobi movie for years.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, like, look, honestly, I'm just gonna like, Dragon. I know you want me to save it until the end, but I so don't want that Boba Fett movie. Like, I love James Mangold as a director, and he would be perfect for Kenobi. Switch him over to Kenobi, and you've got yourself a deal. But I really don't want a Boba Fett movie. And honestly, I think this movie is kind of proof of why we don't want a Boba Fett movie.
Well, I think you have to consider again if they're if it's a more even production from the beginning, I think the Boba Fett movie's gonna have a way better shot than Solo did. I mean, there was, it wasn't like a huge shakeup during during the production as there was with this. Well, again, I'm just assuming things are going to go a little more. But again, that's the interesting point I'm talking about. So let me ask you this. So right now, it seems like the higher ups, like Kathleen Kennedy, and so Kathleen Kennedy's getting a lot of the kind of she's being targeted most out of anyone.
Yeah, so I
In the
was
higher
about
ups.
to say that's a big assumption for you to make at this point that things are just going to go swimmingly well with Boba Fett.
Well, yeah, well, yeah.
Look, I mean, facts are facts. Kathleen Kennedy, like Rogue One, kind of a disaster in terms of the working relationship with Gareth Edwards. Of course, we've had people hired and then fired, like Josh Trank and Colin Trevorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got this whole debacle with the Lord and Miller stuff, which I have things to say about as well. So, like I said, folks, strap yourself in because this is probably going to be a long conversation.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I feel, let me say this. So Kathleen Kennedy, she's had years in the business and she's turned out a lot of great work. I feel it's unfair that she's her alone, she's getting all of this brunt and force. However, from what I'm hearing, again, I can't really substantiate this. From what I'm hearing is that Kathleen Kennedy, again, her name's the only one being thrown around, so I have to assume that she's in some way involved in this. That they're kind of firing back at the fans' criticisms, which is kind of petty. And as we've seen, kind of nowadays, it's like not really the route to go when you have criticism lobbed at you. So regardless, it's definitely. I think the simple way of putting it is that the higher ups are definitely sweating after the response of this something. This is like their big gun, Han Solo. Everyone loves Han Solo. It's kind of like it's like I was gonna make a big Kevin Smith comparison there, but that's not here nor there. Gonna make a Bruce Willis kind of like working relationship with Kevin Smith, but no, that's not apt here at all. Anyway, the point is. I'll say this though. I don't think it's going to stop us getting. I don't think this is going to stop us from getting more anthology films. I really don't. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to shake a little. Like they're going to. Go on.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. I think we're going to keep getting like they're not going to shake from the grand mission of like we have anthology films that are in the main trilogy. But I think it's definitely going to I think what they might do again overall is getting kind of speculation territory. But I think overall they're going to echo what you've been pitching to me before, where they're going to utilize the kind of the pipe they're laying with the Han Solo films. They're going to bleed it, and they're going through the other anthology films. They'll kind of build like a universe within the anthology films. And I think that might be the way they're going to adjust for kind of the.
I mean, as mad as I was about this movie, the groundwork was laid out for some exciting stuff.
And some stuff I actually did some research into. I think it's going to really excite you, but we'll get there.
All right.
All right, so I guess unless you have anything else you want to add about the box office, we can get into kind of the troubled production of it all.
Yeah, Dragon. I just really quickly, there are just certain days in movie production history as a movie nerd that I'll just remember forever. And just hearing about this Lord and Miller situation, that was definitely one of them. Because I can't tell you how excited I was about the idea of a Lord and Miller directed Star Wars movie. I just thought it was the perfect fit for them because they had struck gold with the Lego movie, of course. I love their 22 Jump Street movies. And just overall, I just think they're just kind of a comedic directing force to be reckoned with. And Dragon, I think this is where most of the flack from Kennedy is being lobbied at. Is frankly, I think it's just really kind of insulting that, of course, there's a minutia of details behind the scenes that we'll probably never know the full details of unless there's like a tell-all book written about it at some point or something.
It's sort of like a more public, it's like a more recognizable kind of property version of what happened with Ant-Man with Edgar Wright. It's kind of a bigger, more publicized version of that. It's more like kind of on people's minds than the Edgar Wright thing is like, okay, hey, it was tossed around, and then we just kind of
definitely. But I feel like with Ant-Man, they were able to kind of maintain the spirit of Edgar Wright to a certain extent. Whereas now this movie just kind of feels like a mishmash.
The best comparison I can give you that follows like another famous example of this happening in history is basically they had a whole Richard Donner Superman incident happen on this movie. That's exactly what happened, where Donner was again, it's not as hurtful as what happened to Richard Donner, but Donner was working on Superman 2, and they fired him off the project, and then they had to have someone shoot as much footage as him to meet the official like director requirement of like having your name on the movie. literally almost like
I
that.
still think the Justice League situation is also kind of a good comparison because
Right.
the thing between Justice League and Solo is that it's two directors with very, very distinct tones and styles to them.
True. I think it's a good comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like there's definitely moments in Solo where I'm like, oh, that's for sure a Lord and Miller bit. But then there's also moments where it's like, okay, that feels like a Ron Howard kind of like, pulling out the melodrama and the pathos. So, and for that reason, Dragon, I just feel like the film is kind of a hodgepodge for me. Although, I'm sorry, we should be talking more about the backstory because
All right. So,
I'm still harping on my opinions. Go
all right,
ahead.
well, okay, let's build to some of the Ron Howard of it all here. So, okay, here's the backstory, folks. So, from what I understand, Lucas was kind of flirting way back when, basically in those years of like, oh boy, we're going to get another Star Wars movie, those kind of days. Lucas is flirting with the idea of like a solo film. No, but like a Han Solo film. He's kind of flirting around that idea, and then now it's
I
unclear
think
whether
that Chewbacca should be an all CGI character because he's just a character that needs to be free. He needs to breathe. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
this is Lucas. If Lucas ever wanted to commit suicide via the fans, he would do something like that, announce it to the public, and just walk outside, and then they all swarm on him.
Okay, well, to be fair, I think with Chewbacca's brief screen time in Revenge of the Sith was all CGI.
Well, no, they had the physical guy in there for like the Yoda hug, but everyone else in Kashyyyk was CG,
All
absolutely.
right. Anyways,
I don't know what it is, but they're afraid of making extra Wookiee suits ever since the Christmas special. It's just they're terrified of making more physical Wookiee suits. It's just
we'll get to the other Wookiees. We'll get to the other Wookiees because I have a bone to pick about that with this movie.
oh, all right, okay. So it's unclear. So Josh Trank, we mentioned him. So Josh Trank, from what I understand, he was considered for set to direct a Star Wars film. That's unclear if that was. I heard it was Boba Fett, but then looking into this, I heard it was for Solo. So it's unclear. He was attached to either Solo or Boba Fett. So the point is, Lucasfilm, with that post the Disney deal, they were looking for kind of a young director, looking kind of for like kind of a young new vision, which of course gets us to Lord Miller after Trank falls through after the fan force stick phenomena. So they settled on Lord Miller, of course, coming off of the 21 Jump Street franchise, and of course, big kind of close to Star Wars. They kind of hemmed already. The Lego Movie, which had that Star Wars gag in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so then of course, so we have Lord Miller, who again kind of a fresh, new, kind of young perspective, and we have the Kasdan. So again, the big pedigree now. Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan, and his son Jonathan Kasdan. So Lawrence Kasdan is a huge name in the tomes of Lucas and Spielberg because he wrote the Indiana Jones films, all the good ones, and he wrote I don't know. I think he also wrote Crystal. I'm not sure. I can't remember. The point is, Kasdan.
Yeah, he did.
The point is, Kasdan is involved in the Indiana Jones franchise and kind of the best of with the Empire Strikes Back with Star Wars, and of course then he returned. I believe he also wrote Force Awakens, and I know Johnson co-wrote last year. The point is, Kasdan's involved in the Star Wars projects, and specifically he picked Solo. I think he picked Solo instead of doing Last Jedi. I think that's how it ended up. Actually, I think that's what ended up happening because he had to pick and choose the projects, and this may or may not be like the last Star Wars thing he's working on. Not sure. The point is, Kasdan's an important name and kind of a pedigree writer associated with Star Wars, so that's a big deal.
Oh.
So, of course, there was a lot of casting scrutiny on Han, ultimately landing on Aaron Reich.
Oh, God.
Glover, from what I heard, he campaigned for the role of Lando, which of course was well chosen, well kind of campaigned for. He earned that role.
Yeah, with Glover, it's like I feel like he was really good in the role. I have issues with kind of the stuff surrounding Lando, but we'll get into that.
Okay, let's get into the big issue of it all here. So, Lord Miller, they were fired reportedly because they had a real experimental approaches, and they were figuring things out in the day, trying to get kind of balance out what tone they were trying to strike. Basically, they did a lot of takes, like you imagine when you're shooting like a comedy like 21 Jump Street, doing a lot of takes, letting the actors kind of improvise, just kind of seeing what sticks. They didn't really go in with like a full-fledged out plan. Now, again, traditionally, you have like a fledged out plan and everything. Again, we don't know all the details, just that's the main thing that people keep throwing around, and like the Kasdans also said this, and they kind of they were kind of combating the Kazdans to an extent where they didn't really shoot the stuff that was in the script, and again because they were experimenting a lot of the time, again just kind of trying some new stuff, and and this didn't really fly with the higher ups at the Lucasfilm, specifically Kathleen Kennedy, who again is getting a lot of the hate here, and I have to assume that she's somewhat complicit in this. I'm just assuming, don't know. So
like I said, I think the gray area of it all is how much of this was agreed on when they signed them on. You know what I mean? Because I feel like with a directing team like Lord and Miller, you kind of have to expect them to get a little bit of free reign on what they're going to do.
right, and again, remember this is kind of their first big, and I emphasize it, big again, like a very remarkable, it's Star Wars, the first big live action film for them, because the closest, the biggest thing they've probably done is the Lego Movie, which is like a very recognizable property, and this is the first time they're doing it in live action, aside from like a remake of a TV show. So again, they're again the new, fresh and kind of vaguely comedic direction that combated that Kazdan script. Again, all that's not exactly clear, but here's essentially where the big shift happened. So Ron Howard, who we got to remember is a friend of Lucasfilm, of course, going back of George Lucas and Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy. Ron Howard used to meet a lot of friends in the movie industry, and of course, he got to start with George Lucas in American Graffiti. It was one of his first movies, if not really early in his career. And from what I was kind of wild by, is he almost directed Phantom Menace. Imagine how that would have went. Yeah. So basically, he talked. They went to a breakfast. I think it was like he went to a breakfast or like a meeting over like a lunch or a breakfast, and they offered him the role, and just by happenstance, Kathleen Kennedy was there, and she kind of mentioned the production woes, and she kind of like basically saw this as an opportunity of like, hey, you want to direct? We're kind of looking for some new directors here. And his wife talked him into doing it. Said, "You're going to regret if you say no to this. You're saying no to Star Wars. What are you, crazy? Take the job." So he did, and he had to shoot 75% of the film to again kind of the Superman 2 situation. Got to shoot at least
like absolutely insane. That like honestly, to me, the reason why I think that it's so baffling is like if Lord and Miller were not complying with what they were doing, why didn't this situation get remedied a lot sooner than 80% of the way into production? I mean, that's the thing that really is a head scratcher to me, Dragon. I can understand Lord and Miller going against their contract, but I can't understand how they let it get that far out of hand.
Well, here's the one thing that we're not clear, and this is the one thing that really bothers me in the making of all this. I think it would clear up a lot of questions, is that it's unclear how much Ron Howard had to reshoot, because we know he made 75% of the movie. And that's a question of how much was reshot, but it implies, because again, all we knew going into it was like we saw that red Solo cup, like little teaser image, and they were shooting with the actors, they were kind of like, doing some, basically trying to nail Han down. That was like all we really knew about Lord Miller going into the production, which suggests to me they were like 25% into the production, and Ron Howard just kind of picked it up from there. That's what it suggests to me, but I don't know. Again, it could have been like a lot more like some stuff was obviously reshot again for the director's thing. So at the end, it's unclear if they're like 50% in production or more. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so also there was one major change. This is the biggest thing I can verify was reshot. There's one thing that was definitely reshot. The most, at the very least, 25% that was shot by Lord Miller. They changed, the bad guy was recast entirely. So Dryden Voss, who was played by Paul Bettany. Originally, he was Michael K. Williams, the guy from The Wire and the RoboCop remake. That guy. He was going to be like an alien, like kind of hybrid, kind of crime boss, and they changed that completely to Paul Bettany, who again was like a friend of Ron Howard's, who's kind of called and said, I've never been to Star Wars. I've never been in a Star Wars movie. And just Ron Howard's like, oh my god, yeah, let's get you in there. So really, that's all the backstory we're privy to at the moment, and I doubt that any bonus features or commentary is really going to.
Like I said, tell all book. That's what we need about this movie. You know what I mean? We need a disaster artist for this movie.
Absolutely, I would buy that book in a heartbeat. Okay, so with that said, again, folks, again, the movies we don't even need to do a plot summary because it's pretty simple. It just goes from idealistic young
plot summary. All of Han Solo's dialogue in A New Hope.
And you're not wrong.
Right? It's true.
In many ways, yes. In many ways, yes. So I guess let's just fire in there. We're going to break this down kind of like we did Deadpool, folks. We can kind of go by the main events of kind of Act 1, 2, and 3 here. So let's start Act 1. Let's start with the opening titles.
All right, so this is one of the positives I can give the movie Dragon. This is a much better opening than Rogue One, because Rogue One is just really, and honestly, Dragon, reflecting on it, I do think overall I would rank this movie above Rogue One just because the characters are actually relatable people with human motivations for the most part. Where Rogue One, it's like a bunch of like wooden stacks of, anyways,
I'd agree, but I wouldn't be as harsh on Rogue One. I just say that I agree with you what you're saying. Though again, they don't really hold up on a rewatch, to say the least. Characters.
So yeah, what I love about these opening titles, Dragon, is that it's very Blade Runner-esque, which I love that because it fits with another Harrison Ford franchise.
Honestly, it's so simple, but you know what really got me jazzed about it? Just the fact that we have like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we've had this the first thing you see after the Lucasfilm logo. For all these years, for all these decades, and then of course, then we fire right into the opening crawl, and you're expecting that, and it's kind of a fun subversion. Like, what if it continued? It's like, oh my god, it's such a no.
Oh my god, there's more text in that font. There's more text in that font.
I know it's so simple, but it's just it's so kind of like it's so neat. And I was geeking out over it in the theater, like, oh my god. I mean, I know it sounds just so ridiculous,
but that's the thing. Basically, everything in this movie is ridiculous, like obscure fan service. So it's just a matter of what's going to stick with you and what's not.
And again, folks, like not just to give Rogue One credits too. Again, the gag is that you're seeing a whole movie that is the opening crawl. And that's why there's no opening crawl, like no fun.
Really, that's the gag. I didn't get that gag.
Yeah, we've talked about this when Rogue One came out. That's the gag.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because it is kind of like the whole build up to the opening crawl, right?
Basically, you're seeing a movie of the opening crawl. That's what Rogue One. It's you're seeing the opening crawl for A New Hope play out before you. That's what Rogue One is.
Honestly, I feel like this format for an opening crawl for anthology films would be a good kind of universal format to go with in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of when the movie started, I was kind of wondering. Yeah, I wonder how they're going to go about it. They're going to be gutsy enough to do the crawl. Are they going to do something else? And of course, they did something else. It was kind of like I never thought of that. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
All right. So we start on the planet of Oliver Twist.
No. we go to Crow. And one last thing about the opening titles, I think is important. That's the only reason I bring it up is that I feel the blue opening titles were a good middle ground between the opening crawl and just something else. And I think that sets the tone for the movie. The film is kind of it's a middle ground, I think, for a Star Wars movie. I think that's a good kind of summation of it. So yeah, it did kind of set a tone for what the movie was.
Fair enough.
All right, so
on planet Oliver Twist.
So, by the way, real quick. So again, speaking of what you said about if you were to summarize this movie, it's like all the stuff that Han Solo says in A New Hope, which again you're not wrong about. With that, I love that. I love kind of the Michigan vibe, wherever the Ford, wherever the Ford company was. It has a very we referenced that line from A New Hope where the Corellian Star Destroyers were assembled on, the Star Destroyers that the Empire has are assembled on Corellia, and that's kind of that great way I saw in the trailers as it's the Empire looming over your head. It's like they're being constructed there, and I love how it sets a tone for one of my favorite ideas in the movie, where it's, you have like kind of this, like Corellia is like it's a Michigan. It's a very kind of it's a crime, it's a very lived in city. It feels very lived in, which feels very classic Star Wars, and you see why Han has
grimier version of Coruscant.
In a way, yes, it's like it's a more crime-ridden version of Corellia. It's a place for thieves, and my favorite touch is that it's a place for thieves filled with a lot of alleys. I love that design-wise we have so many alleys.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's kind of like this is like Batman's worst nightmare of a planet. It's like alleys everywhere. Oh my god.
No, that's true. It is a good design. Dragon, as you could guess, though, with my shots on the Oliver Twist of it all, I'm not a big fan of kind of the underdweller situation we have going on.
Well, you know what I read. Now, bear in mind, I'm reading into this, folks, and honestly, I got to tell you, I think Proxima, the whole Proxima and all that stuff, I think that was all Lord Miller. I really do.
Well, it could be, and I'm not trying to defend Lord and Miller because I think this movie is a freaking Frankenstein. So we don't know what parts that were Lord and Miller would have worked out if Lord and Miller would have gotten to see their full vision through.
True. I'm just saying because it's like when Proxima. So basically, here's the idea, folks. So Proxima is like the patriarch of kind of a kind of a gang. A very basically the underdwellers. They had they had their leader with the alligators. They had him, the Sewer King. I mean, that was his name, but I'm also thinking the Hey Arnold villain, who's also called the Sewer King. So it's ridiculous. The point is, you had the Sewer King who presides over the underdwellers, and you have like a patriarch, like a patron. In this case, a matriarch, weird alien thing. And I read it as
I think the Oliver Twist comparison is more like relatable because it really is. Proxima really is the faggot in the situation.
I could kind of see that. But anyway, so with Proxima, the idea I read into it, I like to think they were going for is that shelter is a commodity on a planet of crooks, because if you're on the streets, you're a victim of crime 24/7. And of course, not only that, it's a crime-ridden planet now with the Empire kind of overseeing, with all the Star Destroyers being built. So basically, you're a planet full of criminals, and you have like kind of not even like kind of space Nazis on every corner as well. So it's basically it's you need shelter, you need a place to hide, especially if you're a criminal, and that's kind of what they're. I think that's kind of it's perpetuating the criminal lifestyle in exchange for shelter. Like, hey, you do my bidding, I get free labor, you get free shelter. It's kind of the I like kind of reading the kind of life that Han had and just seeing how he's kind of readied for the smuggler lifestyle just in how he was brought up. So that's kind of nice.
All right, so really quick, I don't want to dwell on this, but I really wasn't a fan of Proxima's design. I like that it's practical, don't get me wrong. But I don't know, there's just something about it that's just kind of off-putting.
And again, I'm not trying to like throw him under the bus or anything either. I'm just saying that it felt like a new, fresh design that felt kind of like maybe what Lord Miller might have come up with. And I think, again, it seems like
Dragon. Aesthetically speaking, I am really not a fan of the creatures in this movie.
We don't have a lot. Honestly, we don't have a lot of. We don't really have a lot of creatures. When you really, the poker game is probably the most creature design we get. Honestly,
I mean, we kind of have creatures kind of spattered throughout in different areas, but
sure.
We see a lot of creatures in Kessel too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because of the whole. Yeah, good point. Anyway, well, let me say, so I think the reason we get a creature design, like they went broad, they went big and kind of like really strange with the creature design, because they're trying to kind of foreshadow like what Han's going to deal with like Jabba the Hutt down the line. I think that's kind of like getting him ready for that kind of.
I feel like it's almost kind of trying to replicate the feel of the original Cantina scene.
Yeah, and I respect what they were going for, and again, it didn't really bother me. I can see how it wouldn't land. I get it.
It's funny, folks. It's like basically a lot of the criticisms that people have about The Last Jedi, I have about this movie, whereas I love The Last Jedi. So I'm kind of getting to experience what it's like on the other side of the coin in a way.
Now, Proxima had like green milk. I mean,
oh God, that's what I'm saying. It's like I didn't mind that element because it's like the blue milk has to come from somewhere. Dragon has to come from somewhere.
Love the creepy cow logic that basically if before it's pasteurized, it's going to be green before it's blue. It's so icky. Anyway, okay, let's talk about what kind of comes from the Proxima scene is the big chase scene where we have this is one of the big great trailer shots we have here, where we have Han and Kira in kind of the cool looking like kind of city designed land sphere. It's not just kind of like it's not what Luke had on Tatooine. It's like something a little more sportier. It's kind of like it's kind of hover cars almost. It looks really neat. And it's a good, again, we're utilizing the alleys of Corellia, which again showcases like kind of the appeal of that world, kind of the design standpoint of that world. And importantly, it foreshadows Han's piloting skills, and we see Han stumbling. Of like the guy has a lot in him, but again, he's not quite, he's not all the way there yet. Where again, he has this really gutsy move, like getting through the alleyway, but he gets stuck.
I also really like the what kind of spurs the escape. This is one of the with Aaron Reich Dragon. Let's just kind of briefly talk about his performance as a whole. There's parts of it where it's funny. I feel like again, much like the movie in general, and I think this is probably because of the reshoots and kind of the fact that the movie was stitched up, his performance in general, like, I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but it feels like kind of a Frankenstein. It's not consistent. Where there's parts of it where he absolutely emulates Harrison Ford, and it's like spot on. There's parts of it where he kind of goes the Chris Pine, James T. Kirk route, where he's kind of making it his own thing, and it works. There's parts of it where it's just not working for me at all. This element is probably in the Chris Pine category, where it's like it's not exactly Harrison Ford, but it's just a lot of fun. Where it's like, he's got the rock and he makes the clicking sound, and Proxima's like, "It's not a grenade, you just made a clicking sound with your mouth."
That is funny.
I know, that's not the distraction. This was. Throws the rock at the window.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, look, overall, Aaron Reich, again, I don't think you're wrong about it. Again, it does feel the majority of it's Chris Pine with those Ford moments. It didn't feel uneven to me though. I just felt that it was kind of overall. I don't know. It didn't really feel like a patch shave of a performance. However, I did hear they had acting trouble with him to get him to that place. So again, maybe you're right, but again, it didn't. I don't know. I just kind of still felt pretty like it's a guy, much like his story of kind of discovering himself. Felt like kind of him discovering the performance within the story. So I don't know. It kind of felt maybe a little natural to me.
I mean, I will say that with all the behind the scenes issues we were hearing and like the kind of emergency acting coach that need to be called in, I think overall the performance was a lot better than anyone was expecting with all that said and done.
Certainly, because again, at the end of the day, folks, what we were hoping for is like we could have this evolutionary chart of Hans where you have where you have Aaron Reich and you have Jamie Costa from A Smuggler's Trade, the awesome fan film I highly recommend everybody check out. And then you'd have Harrison Ford. It's kind of like a chart of like, oh god, these are great, kind of solo performances. Like the Han 10 years ago is Aaron Reich. Han maybe like 5 or 3 years ago, that's Costa, and of course Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the big dice moment. Isn't that now, folks? It's not just dicey. It's a sweet little moment involving the iconic dice that hang from the Millennium Falcon.
I guess probably the one nitpick I have about it is how it changes the context of what they did with the dice in The Last Jedi.
Well, what do you mean?
Okay, well, I mean, Luke gives the dice to Leia as like a final act of like, here's the final remnant of your dead husband. And by the way, it's actually kind of this really important memento of a relationship that your dead husband had before he ever met you.
And come on, the fact those are his dice, and it just it was important here, but he's always had those dice.
Well, I'm just saying, I feel like the dice is one of the examples where you didn't really necessarily need to make a big plot point out of it. He could have just had the dice, and you didn't really need to make it a big plot point with the love interest. But again, that's just me loving The Last Jedi and loving that moment with the dice with Leia, so I'm just being a fanboy with this dragon. I admit it.
Yeah, I kind of read it more as like a luck thing, and just like, hey, for luck, and of course, it was lucky dice, and now he's not there anymore. He wants to give away all the luck in the world. So again, I think it's more to luck than just like one girlfriend specifically. But
yeah, fair enough.
All right, so
the moment itself where Kira and Han are separated is very effective emotionally.
I'd say that's one of my favorite things with Han in the movie here. So this dice moment connects to a lot of the stuff I like here. So again, I went into this movie, my main hope and expectation that again was met as much as I needed it to be met here. Where the big moment where he's separated from Kira, and like the big moment where basically they go past the checkpoint, she gets left behind, but again he doesn't just leave her. He's not there yet, folks, because again this is where the sell point of the movie is for me, at least in the marketing, and it seemed to be true that this is his Luke arc where this is his Luke arc where you see that he starts off as kind of the farm boy all the way to Jedi. In this case, with Han, he starts off with these personal ties where we see he's not a loner. We see him as not the loner pre Princess Leia, and it's heartbreaking to see Han kind of alone for survival. And I mean again, so overall, it's like he starts off as a kid in love, and it leads to kind of these. We see the complexities unfold that get him from that place, just being kind of the street kid in love to to being kind of the solo kind of smuggler of it all.
Hmm.
I like this moment kind of starts that where we see again he's not just like just leaving her behind again. He promises to come back for her, and again that sees like okay, we're gonna see where this goes. And again, the relationship sold me. I was sold on the relationship in the movie. I think Emilia Clarke did a really good job.
Emilia Clarke did a far better job than I was expecting. I haven't
Yeah,
watched a single episode of Game of Thrones.
nor have I.
So I was kind of expecting something more in the style of what we got with Jyn Erso, where it was just kind of like a generic kind of like I'm fighting the rebellion. But instead with her, she was I think again it all comes down to the writing. She was a much more layered character, and I like that with her character, you always knew she was up to something, and I think that was a good. I think the trust no one thing with this movie is a good theme to kind of that kind of wove its way through the narrative. That is
And
one of
again,
the strong points of the writing.
and I love how through this relationship, through her performance, you see kind of reflect on Han's kind of Luke-esque arc too. So again, it's all relative. It's really nice.
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's get to okay. So after so basically Han's in a tight spot and his only way out of the situation. After that, again, kind of Han's kind of he now doesn't have his kind of his better half, kind of his right hand by him, and again, it's so funny. Kind of Han's on a path of like he lost the girl and in the end he gained a Wookiee. That's kind of the grand the grand vision of
Call Me by Your Name of Star Wars movies.
oh god.
Hey,
My point is
shower scene.
true. You're right. Yes. So anyway, my thought here. Oh yes. So we see kind of Han alone, without without his other half there, and again Han in a tight spot here, again out for survival. His only move in the situation where he has like people about to kind of pounce on him and again to take him for all he's worth. He signs up for the Empire.
So, Dragon, honestly, what do you think of the Empire March being canon? Because that's one of the things about this movie that drives me crazy.
So basically they use the Imperial March as their slogan music, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, and Dragon, I hate that.
I swear to God, I until you brought that up to me, I didn't really, I didn't put it together. I saw it was like the music and the score, but that I kind of like that idea because it makes kind of gives the main theme a little bit.
John Williams' music is sacred, sacred. You hear me? Sacred.
How is it? Well, how is it now not sacred?
Because I don't like that it was used as basically like a fan service member berries joke that's now in universe and in canon.
No, Tig, you're not. Tig, you got to see it this way. You got to see it in the way of this. It gives the John Williams theme even more logic now. It kind of explains the John Williams theme. That's kind of neat if that's what they're going for. It's like saying, okay, so that the Empire has their own kind of like their kind of their own kind of marching theme, and that's why it's called the Imperial March in the score. It's not bad.
All right, look, we could go back and forth on this all day. Let's just move on.
You just told me this now, and I swear you, it did not cross my mind. I think it's kind of a neat, in concept, it's a neat idea. When I rewatch it, I'll be able to look out for it. Maybe we'll see how it strikes me then. But anyway.
All right, so let's move on to the dumbest part of the whole movie for me.
You mean the name, don't you?
Yep.
All right, so yeah, let's talk about that. And by the way, just for the,
I honestly feel like you could have just cut this whole bit out. It's like there's no need for it. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, if anyone should have named him, it should have been Beckett. Like honestly, the fact that it's just like a random Imperial recruiter, it's insulting, Dragon. I'm sorry. I hate to get so passionate about it. Like I said, now I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the Last Jedi debate. But I don't know. To me, that's just kind of like I said, I would have accepted it a lot more if Woody would have given him the nickname. But because Woody is a character that he had an actual dynamic with and an actual bond with, it bugs the crap out of me.
Okay, let me say this, all right? Okay, so you're not...
Really quick. To me, it's like, I'm not entirely against the idea of a backstory to the name, but the actual backstory they give him is just, it's so underwhelming. It's just like, really? Like, I honestly would have rather just him had a cool-sounding last name that just ran in the family, honestly.
All right, here's, okay, let me say this. So you're not wrong. By no means are you wrong on this, Harry. Because yes, it's very prequel. It's very much like I heard like a kind of phrase like it is prequelitis, and that it's like we need to explain something. It feels like kind of a hokey, like okay, now we have to. Hey, remember that's how we got the name, It's like one of those prequely kind of prequelitis things. But I read it, and again, you're not wrong that you're right. It is stupid,
Dragon,
but
honestly, it's less prequel and more just like bad remake.
well, I don't know if remake is necessarily the best choice of words, but
No, what I mean by that is just like you know how in a remake it's just like, hey, look, it's this scene that you know from the movie that needs to be in there. Hey, it's kind of the obligatory, like, all right, we're checking this off the box.
well, again, prequel is still it's a forced setup though. So it's like, hey, there's a forced setup where we have to address this, therefore we address it in the prequel. That's kind of what it still feels about that.
Sure, sure.
Okay, my point is that while you're absolutely right, and I will agree, it is on its face, it is dumb, but by the same token, it's always kind of cute. It's like basically as it definitely went unfold, it was like, oh hey, they addressed the name. So again, definitely the first watch I was most kind to it, but then I realized, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But here's the one silver lining about it, though. The one thing I think the reason I kind of read it is cute, and I kind of like, oh, it's kind of nice, is that I like that the Empire is responsible for naming its own trouble with Han. So I like that they came up with the name, and I like the back and forth they had with that guy. I mean, it was a nice little conversation, and like the guy built a little rapport with Han. Says, "I'm going to call you Solo." It's kind of cute. And again, it's not logical at all. It's just kind of cute. That's all.
Okay, so then we cut to 3 years later, and honestly, we get probably the most gritty war sequence in any Star Wars movie, Rogue One included, I think.
So here's the thing. So I think the 3 years later was
words, but it's probably the Saving Private Ryan of Star Wars sequences.
in a way, yes, in a way. So I think the 3 year later jump cut, like they cut to 3 years later, I thought it was a smart time jump to build for two reasons. One, I like the practical reason that we really build to see Han fly, where so he's not piloting he's honest to goodness like piloting a ship by himself. He's not doing that until like the big moment in the movie. And I like that we say that he flunked out of flight school, and that's why it's yet another reason we jumped to 3 years later. So again, we don't see him get like his big moment in the sun quite yet. Where again he would have flown, and of course, just for insubordination, they punished him by putting with the mud troopers. That's their punishment for him. Like, hey, you want to be a pilot, you get flunked out, but you're not out of the Empire, buddy boy. You get like the craft detail of the Empire. Basically, you're on the front lines. Like these are the first stormtroopers to die. Front lines. It's essentially their punishment for Han Solo. So I like the cleverness of where they put him and in the fact they kind of builds to the big moment where he flies. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do like the way they build the flying. That's true.
Of course, in this scene, I also love how Han's clever enough to deduce that Beckett and his crew are also thieves by the fact that, again, it's showing Han kind of being a deductive thief here, where he's a smart con man, where he's realizing, wait a minute, those uniforms, they have like blaster marks in them, and you Dunkirked them. You got the clothing off the dead soldier. You Dunkirked them, man.
Okay, I've seen this movie twice, and maybe you can answer this better than me because you're more into it than I am, but I, for the life of me, can't even figure out why the hell Beckett and his crew were with the Mud Troopers.
Honestly, for the same reason, it's kind of neat. The same reason Han was signed up with the Empire. He needed to get out of a tough spot and then just kind of fit in with their goals. Where in this case, more specifically, it's a temporary evil that Beckett has to do. They need to get to a certain place, and they need to steal an Imperial ship. So they put on some uniforms so they could steal a ship.
Okay, why'd it have to be an Imperial ship?
Well, I mean, I'm trying. Well, they need. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting if it's like literally Imperial or not, because the Imperial might be like the higher. Okay, fine. It's still Imperial regardless. The point is they need. What I mean,
though, it's like it seems to me like they're going through a lot of trouble just to steal a ship.
Well, no, they need basically. I guess it was like in the neighborhood of like instead of going all the way to Corellia where they're assembled and just stealing one fresh off the presses, they can get one like people are going to be distracted during the confusion of war. We're like, hey, let's just steal one that's being used during this war effort here, and we'll get out of there. Might just be an issue like they were in the neighborhood, Tiki. Just might be that,
Oh.
Okay. So then Han, he kind of tries to kind of blackmail Beckett to get on the team. That does not go his way, and he's thrown into kind of the brig with kind of an homage to Return of the Jedi, where you think, oh my god, he's going to go up against like a Rancor or something. But
Oh,
no,
I totally thought it was going to be a Rancor dragon, and I honestly, as good as the scene is, I would have freaking geeked out if we would have seen a Rancor.
I mean, I knew it wasn't a Rancor, but I like the homage to it though. Like, yeah, it's so Rancor-esque.
But Dragon, this leads to, honestly, I think the best scene in the movie.
And I would agree with you. One of the best scenes, absolutely.
Um, and probably my favorite line of the movie, which is said by a random stormtrooper watching this all unfold, which is, "Yeah, kill him slower." Dragon, I just feel like that just goes back to like it just harkens back so much to like the random stormtrooper conversations that we got in the original trilogy.
Yeah, I still say one of these days, one of these Star Wars movies, the best thing they can do, if they could just name one of the stormtroopers Gary, that's all I want.
Oh, God.
The thing is, they call him Gary because again, the closest thing we got is like maybe Finn being the closest thing we're ever going to get to Gary the Stormtrooper. It's the closest thing with like a Stormtrooper turned major character. Sorry, it's a Robot Chicken reference for the folks out there. Just Gary the Stormtrooper is awesome on Robot Chicken. Anyway, getting back to the Chewie of it all, this is a big scene. It makes sense that if Han can understand Wookiee after all this time, he's always like the interpreter for Chewie. It makes sense that he'd have to initiate the conversation and be able to speak Wookiee. It was a great reveal of Chewbacca. Again, give him like a Rancor entrance. Like if you're smart, you're gonna piece together like, okay, that's Chewbacca. And he's all like poor Chewbacca. He's a prisoner of war, and he's like all muddy. And he's been forced to kill people for the entertainment of the Empire. It's like poor Chewie. And he meets Han, his buddy, and like it's like an unlikely friendship. It's almost like a 48 hours or less 48 hours more. It's a Defiant Ones. It's absolutely the Defiant Ones. Or literally like they're chained up together. It's almost identical to the Defiant Ones.
Yeah, I love the look of Chewbacca, like all in the mud. It very much is a symbol of like this is the starting point of their relationship. This is not like status quo Han and Chewie.
Exactly. And I just honestly I read it as it's like at the end of the day their friendship it goes from two guys looking for purpose and kind of forming a connection through others. They form their connection through Chewie. Again, Chewie he kind of discovers a purpose of like I'm going to seek out I'm going to seek out my family, but along the way he kind of he makes a friendship that's kind of distracting him from that bigger goal. And kind of Han has a similar arc as well, where again he thinks he wants the love of his life, or actually he wants kind of the smuggler's lifestyle with Chewie.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, kind of again in basically become forming this crew with Beckett. They form their friendship, so it's really really nice. And
I think that's the most loving way possible. Solo and Chewbacca in this movie have a Shaggy and Scooby dynamic going on.
Yeah, no, people love Shaggy and Scooby, unless it's the live action films. Nothing against Matthew Lillard, by the way.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I love Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, again, it's this great little temporary pairing turned kind of a give and take relationship where, again, they kind of forge like a temporary alliance that kind of turns into this lifelong friendship. And I like that through the movie we get to see, Chewie. I think this is one of the movies where Chewie gets the most to do, and I really like that.
No, I agree. I definitely think this might be the shiny moment for Chewie, especially after The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi, Chewie had approximately 2 good moments.
Yeah, and with Chewie, I love that we can see like you can see him grow a fondness and grow to like Han as the movie progresses. And again, we have a huge moment where again Chewie could just kind of go forward and go on with the mission of saving the Wookiee. Well, we'll get there. The point is, we get to see the bond develop, especially on Chewie's side of things, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's of course they meet up with Beckett, and then of course let's talk about Beckett's crew for a moment here. So you have Beckett played by Woody Harrelson, who I wish we had more with him, but he was good for while he was there. Again, we didn't really. I think all the characters were good in the movie, to be honest. Like,
honestly, Dragon, I feel like Woody Harrelson is one of the few characters where I feel like I got a substantial amount of screen time with him. I definitely think there's other characters I wish we would have seen more of, but with Beckett, I do think that he met my expectations because I like that he's not just a straight up cliche father figure. I like that he's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, we do all we need to with Beckett, so I'm not. I don't think we were cheated at or anything with Beckett. It's just I like this performance. I would have enjoyed to see more of it, but we didn't need it. So again, it's fine how it ended up. It's like I like that he's looking at how each of these characters reflect. I love how each of the three characters on Beckett's crew, they do reflect an element, an aspect of Han. I really did appreciate that. I like how it gives a logic to the character where Beckett is Han's version of Obi-Wan, kind of his vision of his own future. Like you're going to become Beckett in the future. Then we have Val. Val played by I believe Tandy Newton. The girl from Westworld. She plays yeah, do you remember her name?
Maeve.
Maeve, yes, plays Maeve, a big character on Westworld, and she's a representation of kind of what Han thinks he wants. Basically the relationship he wants. He definitely wants the kind of he doesn't have. He kind of wants the smuggler's life and the relationships. He kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too, and that's kind of what Val represents. Like having again being married to the smuggler and just like yeah, once I get my girls, it'll be fantastic.
My favorite part about Val is the fact that she's just so open about not trusting Han and Chewie in front of their faces, and she's not afraid to express it.
Yeah.
Val is one of those characters. Like, there's two characters that get killed off early into the movie. Val is one of those characters where it's like, because it's Thandie Newton, and I really like Westworld, I like her performance on Westworld. I was sad to see her go, but story-wise, I understood it. The other character, Dragon, is a different story.
Let's talk about Rio.
Yeah, Rio is a character where I really just feel like them killing him off was just like a waste. I don't understand it. It's just one of those things where it's like, I get the fact that he was the pilot and you need to, have the pilot go down. But I don't know. I really like the character, and I feel like we really needed at least one more act with him. I feel like him going down, like, I'm not even against him dying. I just think him and Thandie Newton both dying in this one sequence was a little too much, because with Jon Favreau's performance, it's a lot of fun. I do think this is kind of like the good Lord and Miller, honestly.
Sure, I can buy that. Sure, and with Jon Favreau's performance, honestly, this is kind of like one of the elements that Rogue One could have used more. We kind of make our guys stand out a little bit more than just kind of like their. It's like one of the issues with Rogue One is that we might have. It's like too many characters to be iconic. That's the problem. It's like we overcrowd that group. So basically, they have like a moment, but beyond that moment, they really have a lot to them on a rewatch. And because again, K2SO, he's the rock star of that group. Take K2SO out of the equation, it's like you don't run nothing against Diego Luna.
Karen Inouye is a solid number 2 in terms of character lineup in that movie.
I'll give you that, but that's my point. Is like again, after we hit kind of the mainstays, like the guy from the beginning who gets tortured by the giant random squid thing. He gets thrown under the bus. He's the guy who names the group even.
But hey, Dragon, there's always the "you'll be dead" guy. We'll never forget the "you'll be dead" guy.
Panda Boo Boo. No, Panda Baba for the diehard Star Wars fans out there. Anyway, but no, Rio though again. So Jon Favreau did a really good performance. Again, he had a memorable look to him, and what I liked about him, how he reflected Han, is that he's kind of the youthful kind of pilot zeal that Han has. He's kind of a Han's life experience and kind of the youthful kind of pilot zeal. That's kind of what Rio kind of embodied from Hans. Basically, he could relate to this guy. It's like, hey, here's a fellow pilot who kind of knows what he's doing. And again, he developed a bond with Rio, and Rio's like, he's like, oh boy, this kid's like criticizing the way I pilot, and he respects the kid in the end. And again, after Rio's death, because again, he's still kind of flying a little bit Rio. So again, Han's not flying it solo, and he's not captaining his own ship at the moments. But still, it's like Rio's kind of the training wheels getting Han to be a full-fledged pilot in our story. So again, Rio had
actually, I feel like Rio could have completely replaced L3 in the story. Like, have him die in L3's place, and that would have been perfect.
I gotta tell you,
that's the moment where Han needs to take over that's the moment where Han needs to fly. You know what I mean?
I gotta tell you, I'm not opposed to that idea, Tiki. I'm really not. I kind of like that idea of again, because I like Rio so much, I could definitely see him replacing L3. But we'll
like I said, I understand Rio not surviving the whole movie because
sure.
hear about him, but I just feel like he's almost kind of like this movie's Bryan Cranston in Godzilla. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a good character, but when he dies, it's just you almost kind of feel like some of the lifeblood of the movie being drained from it a little bit.
Right. All right. Also, it did educate the folks on the dangers of wounds anywhere. He was just shot in the shoulder, and again, folks, those can be lethal too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So also, of course, speaking of lasers and blasters and such, we have the blaster origin. We'll have a little campfire, get to know you session. So I like the blaster origin. His mentor gave this to him, and he always kept this blaster no matter what. That was a nice little origin. And of course, it has this great poetic significance when it comes to Act 3. So I love that. It was what Beckett gave him. Of course, how the blaster comes into play later on, a huge part of who Han Solo is and what many people love to love to debate about with Han Solo. So again, the blaster was key.
Honestly, with the blaster, for me, it's just kind of indifferent fan service. It's like I knew what was going to happen. I could have predicted that Woody gave him the blaster. So when it happened, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I see what you did there. All right.
Anyway, so let's see. So on to the heist itself. So the heist itself, I like that every planet kind of has like a logic to it. So this planet,
Dragon, I was just on the edge of my seat. I was just sweating bullets. I got to tell you, I had to take anxiety medication because I needed to know if Chewbacca was going to live through this scene.
Again, we did have other Wookiees. They could have just named them other Wookiees Chewie. Okay, no, but in all seriousness, I like that each planet has a logic in that, it's a very kind of different action sequence for Star Wars. It's a space train, it's like a train that kind of hugs the mountains and kind of works like a roller coaster. It's kind of neat.
I liked it, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's like this is how they mine materials and they have to get them traveled fast and they can't just,
I like how with the scene we saw all the different members of the crew kind of having a different role. I like how Rio was kind of flying behind the crew the whole time. It was very kinetic in that regard.
I like the logic of the heist. The whole you attach the cables to the car and basically you blow out the tracks. So basically, you just like fly in a straight line, just kind of carry it off with that. I like the plan.
Oh,
so of course, this is a big setup for Han's future too. By the way, so basically the heist goes awry. We have a few deaths, obviously, and basically we showed the danger that Han's going to be. Of course, he's going to be in hot water with Jabba the Hutt for what happens here. Not specifically this instance. I'm just saying it's something identical to what happens here. So it's a good learning experience for him. Where a smuggler, if you're a smuggler, dropping the cargo is a death sentence in the smuggler game, and that's what he does here. He drops the cargo in favor of saving Beckett. And again, like Beckett, he's panicking. He's going nuts. Like, oh my God, do you realize what you've done to us? Dropping, I told you not to drop the load, and you dropped the load. So of course, he dropped the load at the sight of the Imperial officers, which is why Jabba wants his head in A New Hope. So again, identical situation. That interestingly, Han makes the same. Again, it's kind of like Han at the end of the day. He's going to make He's going to choose to be a survivor than it is to be a successful smuggler at the end of the day. I think it's an interesting little character choice for him.
Mm.
So yes, so again, the job is a very split second, kind of like your life or your job moment. Of course, has a lot of loss. Beckett lost his whole world that he was willing to lose. Though again, I mean, he's a little torn up about Val, but again, it's not like crippling him though, because again, he's made that connect. He's like, hey, I love this one, but if she dies during the job, that's the job. And of course, that's a good learning curve for Han later on, that you shouldn't attach yourself to a relationship of any kind.
And honestly, with the relationship between Val and Woody, it's like looking at it on kind of a deeper level, it kind of felt like two broken people sort of connecting themselves to each other almost in a leftovers type way.
Sure. And I like that Han earns Beckett's respect, with him supporting him in the botch job. Where again, Beckett the responsible adult here says, "Look, kid, he doesn't know who you are. You just leave now. I'll deal with it." But Han sticks his neck out to accept responsibility for a job where he doesn't really have to because he saved Beckett's life. And Beckett respected that enough. Where again, he was kind of mad about it first, but he'll take his lumps because that's the game. But I like that he develops. He likes Han's weakness and he sees how he can kind of cultivate that. Where he's making amateur mistakes, but I kind of, God help me, I love the kid for it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great. Again, I can't wait to see Beckett and Han's dynamic again on a rewatch because that really kind of jumped out to me. It's like, yeah, that was good.
I honestly think it's more kind of like a coworker taking another coworker under his wing more than a father and son.
Exactly. That's the perfect comparison. Yes, it is like that.
All right.
Yeah, he sees a young version of himself. Like, yeah, I was in his shoes. I'll show him the ropes.
Right, right.
And what's also interesting is that Han, in a moment, in a moment in A New Hope with Luke, he offered Luke the same opportunity that Beckett gave him, where he offers Luke, hey, why don't you come with us? We could use you. You're resourceful. We could use you on the job. And again, it's kind of the same opportunity that Beckett allowed for Han. So it's kind of a nice little snake eating the tail kind of
Mhm.
note in the storytelling there. Okay, let's get to Act Two.
All right, so we start out with meeting Paul Bettany's character and reuniting with Kira.
So Dryden Voss, Bettany's character, is one of my favorite elements in the movie. One of my favorite
I
characters.
just wish you would have had at least one more scene, Dragon. That's the only thing.
I'm just fingers crossed they'll get some. I know they're gonna be a little touch and go about a lot of stuff. I just hope we get some deleted scenes on the DVD with Dryden Voss. I just want to see more of the guy because he was.
Because I agree with you. I loved every moment he was on screen. He was really edge of your seat, where it's like he had such a charisma about him, but at the same time, you knew he was going to snap, and he's a really dangerous guy, and he just kind of like he loves to just kind of like dangle these things in front of your feet. He loves to just like dangle the idea of being secure and in good terms with him in front of you, and then just taking that away.
I mean, he had the menace of a true crime boss, where it's like it's like getting in bed with the mob, where again things seemed really cordial and really nice and secure, and of course, the trap door could drop out any second on what happens. And of course, the pleasantries of it all, Tika. The pleasantries were delightful. He's offering you refreshments and everything. This is like Nick Ford's fantasy of what he would be in space. He'd be Dryden Voss.
My favorite boss moment, kind of skipping ahead, is basically the moment where he's calling out Han, and he's like, "Oh no, I know. The like, here's the thing. I would have totally thought these were real if I wasn't already aware of the plan." So it's like, I love the pleasantry where he's like giving Han total props and respect, but at the same time being like, it's such a good transition. It's like, oh no, you're really good. I want to know how you did this, but I'm gonna have to fucking kill you.
In a way, they kind of took that. In a way, they kind of took that really pointless Jabba the Hutt scene we had in
Okay, I like that Jabba the Hutt scene, but that's just because I really like Jabba, and I'll just take him wherever I can get him. But
no, I mean they took that scene in the re-release of A New Hope with Jabba that they added there, where it's basically again it's not a terrible scene, but the problem is you don't need it, and it kind of like it messes with the scale of Jabba, and like Han stepping on his tail, kind of takes the menace away from Jabba. But the point is, I think they kind of took kind of what they were going for with that scene. Almost. I'm not saying it was like really intentional, but it feels like they kind of took what that scene was going for, and they kind of play it even better here, where you have like Han, my boy, or it's like Dryden Voss is like, oh Beckett, hey, how are you? Are you hurt? Yeah, he's like, yes, he really cares about it. Well, that's the thing, like and then in that New Hope scene, it's like after he sent Greedo after him, Han's like saying, hey Jabba, give me more time. It's like, okay, Han, my boy, fine, I'll give you more time. That's like, it just feels like it's just undercutting what we just had there. In this case, like, oh my god, it's adding so much to the menace so that he could snap at any moment. By the way, apparently they reached into, I don't know if that was going to set you off or not, but they did reach into a lot of kind of obscure expand universe stuff for a lot of the world building in this movie. Kind of like Paul Bettany is actually a species from the expand universe, and his gimmick is that um, the scars on his face, like the anger, when he gets angry, he gets that's how he gets those lines on his face. Like he'll get more lines, and his eyes will get really red and stuff. And basically, it's like every time he's gotten angry and killed somebody, he gets like all these new scars.
I like how that's in the vein of Star Wars, where it's like visually you get it explained to you, and we don't have to have it explained through any sort of exposition. It just kind of works on a visual aesthetic level.
Yeah, I remember watching, again, I learned about this afterwards, but I remember like every time he got angry, like something happened. I think his eyes got a little brighter, but like something else was happening. I couldn't quite put my finger on, but now it's like, okay, that's where the scars come from. That's brilliant.
And Dragon, I'm glad you bring up the expanded universe stuff, because that is a good point. A good plus of this movie is that this movie does. It's funny. It's almost kind of like the opposite of the Marvel situation we have, where this movie's like, yes, Clone Wars. I embrace your canon. I welcome your canon. Come here, Clone Wars. Let me welcome you in with open arms.
Yeah. I love how you're personifying Clone Wars. Yeah. So speaking of kind of ideas to be expanded, let's just touch on a little here. So again, Crimson Dawn, which I summarize, crimson is a chosen term for a very specific reason, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
So again, he's friendly yet he'll kill you because it's business. Like, oh, I like you, but I'm going to have to kill you because it's the way it goes. It's Dryden Voss in a nutshell. So Kira's return. So Kira has returned to the fold. Now I like that this solves I would make an argument that certain plot points in the movie aren't predictable. I'll make an argument for like at least 2 moments in the movie where the plot points aren't predictable. We'll get there when we get there. This one right here is that some people would say, hey, Kira coming back and working for Voss, it's a little convenient. I like that it kind of solves the predictability a little bit with the subversion of like, okay, we're going to have to, Han's going to go back to the plane. He's going to be disappointed in some variety when she re-enters the journey in a different capacity. Like, no, she just kind of hit him off. So we don't have to do that.
It's not her being in a damsel in distress position either, which is refreshing.
She technically has all the power. She has all the carte blanche. She has like, hey, look at this symbol here. I work for Dryden Voss. Give me what I want. She has a lot of. That's the thing. It's because she solves a lot of story problems when she comes back, and again, it subverts kind of what the usual the predictable story element. So again, I would disagree with anyone who would say that it's isn't that awfully convenient? Says, no, it's not convenient. It's stopping us from convenience. So I love that we hint at the life choices that are preventing. Basically, with Kira, we hint at life choices preventing you from living in the past. It's kind of the main story crux that we get from the significance in relation to Han we get from Kira upon her return of like, hey, 3 years have passed. I've made choices I'm not proud of, and that's kind of a warning for Han. Like, hey, the choices you make in this movie are going to define the path that you go on, and just be aware of that. And that's kind of what he's being made aware of through the relationship with Kira.
Yep.
I like that we have kind of this beauty and this trauma. She conveys this beauty and trauma, yet it's not melodramatic. At least I didn't read it as melodramatic. I felt like it was kind of invested. Again, it was invested in a relationship.
Yeah, and I do like how there's, like I said, I like how there's kind of like an underlying tension where just because of the theme of the movie, she's going to betray him at some point. You just don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I like that you can see the relationship's doomed because, Han and Kira, they both are seeking redemption and happiness. Han's seeking happiness, she's seeking redemption, and they want to do that together, but by the fact that they want different things, it's doomed to fail. Like, no, they can't.
I think my favorite line that sums that up for Kira is when she says, you're looking at it like basically the game analogy where it's like, this isn't the type of game that you win. It's like, you just play it as long as you can.
Oh, that is a good line.
You know what I mean? That kind of sums up their relationship in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Han is the person where he's always looking for the way to win, and Kira is looking for the way to survive.
It's a Kazdan line if I've ever heard one. All right. So speaking of kind of Kazdan and gambling and such, let's talk about Lando.
The cool side of the pillow.
Yes, or I guess the cool side of the smaller pillow that will become the bigger Billy D. Williams sized pillow later on.
Okay, so before the elephant in the room when it comes to the Lando storyline kicks into gear, I love the gambling scene. It's like it definitely. I think everything about Donald Glover's performance is incredibly spot on. I mean, I just think that he nails it. Like, this is definitely an impression performance, but it's a freaking really, really impressive impression.
Yes, and I like that it's kind of laying some great pipe here. Where again we sell Lando what we first saw the guy in Empire, where he's got an active social life, he's charming, and basically that's kind of what gives him that active social life. The guy's charming, he can talk his way out of any situation, and you can buy this guy could become a really valuable politician, like leading Cloud City years down the line. Like, yeah, he's a silver-tongued devil, all right, and he's fashionable and he's cool. Everybody loves him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Glover was so on the money and cool in this movie.
I also like how throughout the movie, Han has a series of risks that he takes that doesn't necessarily pay off, and this being one of them. It's a good misdirect.
Yes, so big subversion to the one of the big things we were going to this movie expecting going to happen when they announced, "Hey, Lando's in the movie." Of course, it's a no brainer. Like, hey, he's going to bet the Millennium Falcon. He's going to lose, and Han's going to get the Millennium Falcon. And again, this is like it's not. I can't in full conscious say it's a matchstick moment like a Pixar matchstick moment, but it's kind of it's like the beginning of an extended Pixar matchstick moment. Like
Right,
you
right.
you think it's gonna happen, and of course it happens in a different way towards the very end. Um, so yeah, like they're kind of playing with they're playing with character over canon with a move like that, where it's like, hey, we're gonna, what's gonna happen, but we're not gonna do it in the way you think it's gonna go down because you're having so much fun with the character right now. Where it's like, hey, yeah, logically, if Lando's this cool guy, and we have to build this up, then in no way would Han be able to win this because Han it's too early for Han to be that good. But by the same token, we show that this important detail that Han, in a moment, he figures out the con very early on. Like he sees the card under his sleeve. Like, oh, that's how he got the cards. So again, Han's figuring that out, but again, he's not clever enough in the moment to kind of outcon the con man yet.
Mhm.
But he's on to him. So again, like our characters uh, they're very on point with each other. So again, it would be kind of a buy if like Han was that good that early. So
All right.
all right. I guess it's the
So
elephant in the
L3
room.
has approximately one good line in the movie, Dragon. Approximately one.
What do you got?
The whole bit where she's like, I'm sure you've noticed this, but Lando is really into me, and I'm just not having it. Although sometimes I think maybe. I like that, Dragon. I hate everything else. Like the whole SJW bot thing, that's completely on point. It's so on the nose. This is Kathleen Kennedy at her worst, Dragon, honestly. This is just kind of that's the thing that people hate about these new Star Wars movies is the pushing an agenda. I've never felt that about Rey. I've certainly never felt that about the Finn character, and anyone who thinks that way about the Finn character can frankly fuck off. But oh god, Dragon L3 is it's just so on the nose.
All right. Well, first off, again, I don't know how much of that agenda we should directly put on Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know how much of that we should. I don't know if that's all her or not.
I
So we
only
always
say because Kathleen Kennedy is like openly stated that she wants to lean in a more kind of like socially progressive direction with Star Wars.
Oh, okay. Well then, okay, never mind then. But
Yeah, yeah.
okay, let me say this. So with L3, now first of all, I absolutely agree with you. That one line though is my favorite moment with L3. I agree with you there. It's definitely her best moment. That will honestly, I love that whole conversation scene with her, but that line
Little
specifically.
talk scene.
That's what I'm saying. I love that. I love that scene where they're kind of talking about the relationship, and that's honestly that's where I liked L3. That's what I think. That's where we hit all the good stuff with L3 in that scene, and kind of the stuff, even the stuff leading up to that. Like, so
I just wish that L3 was more that character in that one scene and less the whole like they're using you for entertainment. Stand up for your
All
rights.
right, so let's break this down a little bit here. So again, so L3 on the whole, she's got a fun person. Again, before we get to on, I think on the whole, what they were going for when we start with her is that she has this fun personality and kind of it's the idea. It's like a pre-Nibnub kind of co-pilot um, for Lando, kind of like before like honestly, it's like I read it as this is kind of like a pre-Lobot, and this kind of sets up why Lando has a respect for droids because he had a bond with L3, and he had a really deep bond with the droid. Therefore, he has like we kind of set up why he has so much respect for Lobot, who's like part droid, part human. So
Mhm.
I kind of had there's some Lobot subtext there because I was hoping to see Lobot in this movie, but we didn't. But maybe if we ever get more Lando in the future, I want to see
I'm telling
Lobot.
you, Dragon, we need the Calrissian Chronicles.
God.
By the way, that is probably the biggest laugh. Both of the movie's biggest laughs are Lando laughs, but the Calrissian Chronicles thing was just absolutely on point. It's just it's totally embracing the cool side of the pillow of it all.
Yeah. So I think in regards to the whole social justice warrior droid thing. So here's what I liked about it, but they went too far with it. They overplayed their hand on this, where it was a good idea to address kind of droid status in Star Wars. In the base of the beginning, the way she did it there was just like, hey, they're using you for entertainment. That's kind of a fun observation. Like, yeah, we never really have addressed that in Star Wars. It's kind of like they excited for that one
I
line.
do like the really old school droid technology at play in that scene. It's almost like BattleBots
I
technology.
know, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like again, like all of the, that's again, that makes sense, and it's kind of that little observation from Star Wars. Like A New Hope, we've always had that one moment, the whole we don't serve their kind here, and we're kind of addressing again after all these years, like yeah, we've never really done anything with that.
Uh-huh.
And again, initially I think okay, just kind of bring it up a little, giving L3 like a little bit to do there, but then the problem is, again, this is more something definitely after the first watch. First watch, I'm most forgiving on it, but after time, you hear a lot of yeah. We go. It's a big. Basically, we overplay our hand absolutely on it. We go too big on the issue. We go overt on the issue, where she's just making her whole personality. We take away all the things that make L3 special. It would seem, where she's a droid. We smartly look into the whole like the droid politics, so like the whole like you could a droid have a relationship with a human, or at the very least, and we're making light of it, so we're not taking it super seriously. We're walking that line perfectly in the beginning, but then we turn to like a whole like liberation.
I hated all the rebellion, liberation. I hated all that stuff, Dragon. Oh, that's where I really wanted to just see L3 go down.
And that's a shame because L3 was really grabbing me in the beginning. Like, okay, L3 is kind of fun, a new, refreshing kind of droid. Kind of following kind of our K2SO mold. Like, hey, let's go.
I will say, I love how her design is basically kind of mimicking Captain Rex.
Yeah. As a pilot, yeah, that's the thing. We're doing a lot of neat stuff with L3, and then we kind of go overboard with like again, we don't walk the subtle line with it where we should have. We spell it out too much.
Yeah.
Again, like I love that relationship advice moment because again, that's her, like a human side of a droid, which kind of adds credence to her point of like, hey, maybe a droid could be, seen as human, but again, without making into a big issue, where they have like a little bit of a laugh there. Well, again, so the point is, L3 was definitely a huge mixed bag of all the characters are pretty easily be sold on. L3 is the only one that kind of can divide people. I feel.
All right.
Let's briefly talk about the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, so I just in terms of the whole like escape pod of it all, I just think that was just completely unnecessary.
Well, when you say unnecessary, do you mean so just the escape pod, or
like I mean, making the Falcon have the iconic shape? I mean, it's like why didn't it's almost kind of like the last name thing. It's like it's a backstory thing that didn't need to have a backstory to it.
I heard this. I was watching Red Letter Media. They were talking about Solo, and they had this whole hilarious thing about the escape pod. And apparently, this is like a really deep cut New Hope reference about the escape pod. That might be why they put it in the movie, because basically the Empire, when the Millennium Falcon is on the Death Star, they make this mention of like. It basically, well, sir, we've looks like the vessel's ejected all of its escape pods. That might be where at least the idea for that came from. The idea like Lando, he put in like a custom made escape pod to fill in the missing, like it's a refurbished ship or something like that.
I guess so, Dragon, but I think that kind of speaks to one of my issues with this movie is I feel like this movie has too many moments like that where it's simply just like, hey, we had a line about it in A New Hope, so we have to spend fucking millions of dollars to visualize it in big screen, big budget movie form.
All right, well, okay, look, I'm just citing that. I'm not saying that. Look, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong, but by the same token, I like the escape pod. Being the gadget vehicle guy that I am, I like the escape pod. It was like a neat way of okay, we're going to see the Millennium Falcon kind of this pristine, kind of cool looking condition. Of course, logically, we're going to see in kind of the more tattered, lived-in version that Han's going to have. One of my favorite.
I like that we see the arc of the Falcon through the movie. We see kind of like the state that it's in when Lando has it versus kind of like by the end of the second act, it's kind of beaten down and it's like representative of how Han's going to treat it.
Yeah, and again, throughout the movie, I was saying, okay, it's going to get damaged, and that's how we're going to lose the middle part. The escape pod was like it was kind of neat, and again, it was sort of fun and pointless. Like oh, that served no point. Like he wasted a perfectly good escape pod. Oh well, it's like
oh well,
exactly. But now let me tell you though, my favorite. Okay, so I think the Millennium Falcon it looked beautiful in the pristine condition, so it looked nice. I love the exploratory shots. Like we've explored the Falcon in a way that we haven't done like a million times before. We're seeing kind of again in its pristine heyday. And it's like the chest set. We're still using the stop motion on the chest, on the hollow chest, which is still pretty neat. And again, like we're seeing like all the little features. Like there's a room full of capes and.
Anyway, that was Emilia Clarke's most adorable moment, by the way.
And by the way, George Lucas was on the set for that day for that
Really?
scene. George Lucas, and this is because Ron Howard and George Lucas are friends, and George Lucas he
I think
usually
all the
keeps.
capes should be in CGI because Lando is a larger than life character, and just
No,
capes really represent that larger than life personality.
okay, in all seriousness, George Lucas did have like a fun. There's a little. It's so adorable. George Lucas is on the set, and again, it's kind of it's gonna make you like Lucas or Lucas. He was on the set, and again, he was just kind of there because his friends are Ron Howard. And he usually keeps his distance because
Mm-hmm.
basically Disney always shoots down his ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And like Lucas, he was like on the set, and it was like all like, oh, just happy to be here. It's all good. Oh, good job, Ron. Anyway, so Lucas is in the corner, and I'm not making this up. I'm basically
No,
here's
I'm
the
sorry.
part.
It's like, I love the pleasantries that you're creating between Howard and Lucas. I'm sure that's what it's like, but it's nice. Go ahead.
Here's what actually happened though. So very sheepishly and very hesitantly, because again, I don't want to tell Ron what he's doing there. I just want to he's going to do what he does. He worked on American Graffiti. He has a good head on his shoulders. That he's Opie. He knows what he's doing. But in all seriousness, he very sheepishly he said, "You know what? I had an idea because he shared an idea that he had because he noticed when they were shooting the scene, Han was gonna when he caught her with the capes, he was just gonna hang the cape up, and they said, you know what? Han would probably he wouldn't care about hanging up the cape. He'd just throw it on the ground." Was good, get into embracing the girl, and that's what they use. It's like, oh my god, it's so adorable. That feels like like old school. That feels like an original trilogy move of Han. Where he's gonna toss the cape, and yeah, it's like good on you, George. You had a good idea there. It was kind of nice.
All right.
It was pleasant to learn. Anyway, so the big thing I want to hit on the Falcon real quick before we move on is that my favorite things in the whole movie is with the Falcon here, where I love speaking of American Graffiti. I love the American Graffiti or like kind of the old Michigan kind of like Ford Ford factory idea here, where I love the touch that Han's father built ships like the Millennium Falcon, and that's why he had such a
Yeah,
fondness.
yeah. I'm just glad that the movie like resisted the temptation to show a flashback of Han's father. I don't know, like fucking like Liam Hemsworth or something, like inventing the Millennium Falcon. You know what I mean? I'm so
Right.
glad the movie didn't go there.
No, I know, but seriously, I just love like the idea his father had like an assembly line job where he worked at like a factory like a General Motors or like a Ford, and again it fits into the kind of that basically this line Tiki is like what I wanted the movie to be. I swear to God, and again we need to see just like one of the Americana of it all with the Ron Howard. This is a Ron Howard moment
Mhm.
where again this is absolutely what I wanted from. I want to see kind of like the kind of Han go through his own version of a Luke arc, but kind of that American Graffiti, kind of all American earnest kind of style where says, my father used to build these, and that explains why he loves the Millennium Falcon, why he cares about it, and that's all you need to know. Like he doesn't have a good relationship with his father, but his father was laid off from the factory, like many people were in the industry. We kind of used the old kind of the car guy mentality from American Graffiti, and we applied it to a Harrison Ford movie to a film based on based on his iconic Harrison Ford performance. That was so nice. I love that. One of my favorite ideas in those. It's a little line. It's a little thing. It's one of my favorite bits of the whole movie. Okay.
All
What
right.
about the speed? Let's go to Kessel. Darn it. Let's go to Spice Mines. I need some
Oh
spice.
God, Dragon, this is where the movie really slows to a grinding halt for me. I'm sorry. I cannot get into this stuff.
I don't think it's that slow, but I mean, it's the big mission of the movie. I need to go to Kessel.
I've seen this movie twice and I still don't understand exactly what the fuck the actual Kessel Run is.
Well, all right. So they need to go to Kessel. So the ship, sorry, the okay. So
No,
the
I'm
Coaxium.
serious. Is it like is the Kessel Run like the time it takes to get out of that like worm? It's like the Kessel Run should have been a drag race, Dragon. It bugs the crap out of me.
Well, the Kessel I'll say this much: if you're asking, I thought you were asking like what the heist was all about because they're still in the space fuel. They're still in like the stuff that
No,
kind of makes
I
it like.
understand that. The heist is fine, except I just think the big thing with the heist is it gets a little too messy with, as we already discussed, like L3 being like, freedom! I found my calling, Lando!
And again, I'll say this about it, though. I do love that cute bit when when she frees the droids. Says, "You're free now. Just do whatever you want." Now, just like tells the stop to go away, stop bothering, and liberate the others. And he actually does it. I'll admit that's cute, though. I did like that. That you're right, though. It's a distraction amongst the heist, but it's a
And
cute little
then,
moment.
okay, let's talk about the most disappointing element for me. Dragon, I was so goddamn ready. I like one of the most exciting propositions of this whole movie in terms of the trailers was them connecting the holiday special to the mythology of Star Wars. And they fucking chicken out on that shit, man.
They did reference it, though.
Out on it. They fucking pussed out.
They referenced it, though.
Did they really? I mean,
Chewie's family.
What I wanted Mala, okay? I wanted Mala.
Yeah, well, look, it would have been. I'll admit, okay, so they did at least mention the family, but by the other token, I'll give you all the credit in the world for this. Is that it might be a case of they were told from the top not to, like I'll bet you Lord Miller wanted to reference it, but they when taking them out of the equation, it was like it's like they didn't want to make things silly or reference it because they didn't want to like risk referencing the Star Wars holiday special. But at least they got that line in there. They got a line in there, but they didn't go the full Monty of like saying okay, he saved his wife.
I just don't get that because
they could have and they should have, but
having a wife isn't exactly like tied to the holiday special. It's just kind of like a nice notion on its own.
I have to tell you again, it's like kind of a situation we don't know. It sounds like an order from the top down. That's really what that kind of that choice plays to me as. But by the same token, because I don't know, I still saw that one Wookiee as female. I can't verify. Just the one that kind of tuffles Han's hair, and I love that moment.
The one that looked like a really bad Halloween mask.
Well, no, you gotta remember seriously, those Wookiees are like kind of shaved and everything. That's why they look all wonky. That they've been tortured as slaves in the Kessel. That's why they look all funky.
Oh, I didn't even get that.
I know, but that's why they're a little wonky looking with all the shave. There's some fur shaved and stuff. That's kind of like they've been tortured and beaten.
That makes sense. That's something if I ever do feel the need to go back and watch this movie again, I'll look for it.
The only logical reason I could figure is they didn't want to torture Chewie's wife. That might be the only reason they didn't make that the Wookiees on Kessel like that. But by the same token, they still could have involved like kind of I don't know.
I mean, look, Dragon. I'm not saying we need to have a scene of like Chewie's grandfather sitting down to watch some holographic Wookiee porn. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to go that deep cuts with the whole.
No, I see you're saying though, but I don't know. By the same token, I don't know where the whole choice not to do that came from. I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, so I don't know, the Kessel Run in itself, the whole so basically the heist goes down. I love the Return of the Jedi reference. Some people question the logic of it. I still love it that Tobias Beckett he's wearing Lando's disguise from Return of the Jedi when he was like this guy's like a bounty hunter at Jabba's palace.
He was another one. It kind of fits in the realm of the blaster where it's like, I see what you did there. Very clever. All right.
Well, you needed the blaster. This one you didn't need. This one's like, oh, that's for the Return of the Jedi.
I know, but I had the same emotional reaction to it, which was just kind of like vague indifference.
So with the Wookiees on the whole, just without the whole holiday special, we already talked about that. I love that Chewie told the Wookiees about Han's. Like, oh yeah, I met this guy. And, I just gave him the whole like how I met this guy story. It's like the one Wookiee's like tuffing Han's hair. Is like, oh yeah, you're welcome among the Wookiees. We like you. I mean that was nice. I just love the fact that
a much better origin story than seeing like young like little kid Han Solo among the Wookiees in Revenge of the Sith.
Sure. Yeah, and also again, I do love that moment where he basically Chewie and Han they go their separate ways, and he wishes them the best, and he gives them the weapon. It's like, hey, defend yourself or look after yourself. And Chewie made a choice to either kind of go with the Wookiees and then eventually go back to Kashyyyk, probably find his family, and vice versa. He chose to stick it out with Han, the guy who kind of allowed him this opportunity. So again, it's so sweet seeing kind of Chewie's arc through the movie like that. Let's see. So again, so briefly with the death of L3, because it is kind of a big moment for Lando. So with the death of L3, I will say this: it's kind of nice that she died doing what she believed. I'm not saying I liked what she believed in, but it's kind of nice she died doing. I mean, it's nice that she died doing what she believed in, and dying in land. And the other thing,
Dragon, she could have totally survived that situation if she wasn't all into the whole like freedom revolution.
Yeah.
Like if she would have just like paid a little bit more attention to her surroundings, but a little bit more on her A game, she would have totally gotten out of that situation.
And in the end, she kind of died the way she wanted to, where she, she died what she believed in, and she died in Lando's arms, the person that she liked, even though she wouldn't admit it.
Okay, to be fair, I do think it was kind of disturbing seeing the whole like Lando, what's going on? Lando, you know, like kind of the
Yeah.
malfunction right before the death.
Oh yeah.
That was effective.
I know what I'm saying. So at least, I think the death was good. Just again, the things leading up to
I
the
do
death.
not like her being in the Millennium Falcon's computer system, though, Dragon. That was a step too far for me.
Look, Tiki, I feel it would have been better received had again her character not gone off the rails. I think that would have been an okay choice had that not had the kind of the character not been soured by all that all the social justice warrior stuff. I feel you would. I think you'd be singing a different tune if you liked her a little bit more.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't think you're wrong. I'm just saying I think that's what's kind of getting you that way.
No, you're right. You're right. I'll definitely admit that. Yeah.
All right, so it's the Kessel Run itself. So again, basically, we have Han finally in the pilot seat now. L3's the equation, and again, we see him outmaneuvering the Star Destroyers, which is cool. We see kind of that risky kind of alternative. They're going the risky alternative route, and again, the Kessel Run. The idea is like basically you need to get from point A to point B as fast as you can. Like there's a top speed and like a measure of distance. I don't know. The whole parsec measure of distance.
Okay, here's the thing, Dragon. Like, not even fucking astrologers care about what a parsec is, all right? Like, this whole 12 parsecs thing, it's for, like, the nerdiest of the nerdy, all right? The hardest of the hardcore. And that's what bothers me about this, is it's literally just, like I said, this is, like, the definition of, like, okay, we're literally spending millions of dollars to address one line of a movie.
Oh yeah, but it's like it's so funny that this is Han's like his point of pride, which really means nothing to the average Joe. That's like his point of pride. Like, hey, if you're a pilot, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's kind of what the read on it was. It's like it's like Han's big kind of brag point about the 12 parsecs, and that's the whole thing of the Kessel Run. We see it's like an important thing for him. And again, as we see for the character here, this is the first time he's in the pilot seat on the big job. It's kind of defining where he's kind of cementing himself as a smuggler. So he made this, and he has like that little bragging right that he's probably himself, almost like Star-Lord style. He's just trying to kind of spread around, saying, "Oh, it's kind of like how Star-Lord introduces himself as like." Like Star Lord, man, Star Lord, legendary outlaw. It's kind of like him trying to build his own mythology because of this big moment where he kind of discovered himself.
No, I understand. I just like, for me, again, it's just kind of like, it's just a little too like over the top, where the payoff to me was basically a punchline. You know what I mean? It was a punchline. And I just feel like it was a little bit too much build up for what was essentially a punchline, which is like, oh, yeah, it's 12 parsecs if you round down.
All right, okay, fair enough. But by the same token, we got to admit this sequence is executed very well. I mean, I think it's a really exciting.
Okay. I mean, I'm not over the moon about it the same way I am about a couple scenes in this movie. It's fine.
I just mean, like, I like how we have, like, these spinning plates where, Beckett, he has, like, the whole fuel tension of, like, the fuel's about to explode if they don't get to their place in time. Again, if they don't beat the whole, that's where really the parsec comes into play. If we can we have to get there faster than the usual kind of amount of time it takes, so we can unload this fuel before it blows us up. And, of course, he has to get, like, just a drop of fuel to re-engage the light speed. And, of course, visually, I like what we're doing, where we have these great shots. It looked a lot better than we feared it was going to look. At least we were afraid it was just going to be like a big tentacle monster. There's a little more than that. We saw like that giant monster, like the silhouette when they're like this black hole space in the darkness, where like they're being chased by this giant thing. It's very akin to the worm monster from the.
I just wish it would have been the worm monster, though.
Well, those were in asteroids, though. They're not an asteroid.
I guess. I don't know.
It has like a worm and an apple.
Like that's almost like, it's funny. That's almost a situation where I wish it was more fan service than it actually was.
However, he did pull the same move to get out of there, though. And again, we saw the origin of that move here, where he turns to the side like he did in the alleyway to kind of get through the teeth of the worm monster. So it's kind of it's kind of neat. In this case, he did the worm thing so he can get in through the little opening. So it's kind of a little. The turn to the side. So I like he's using his drifting abilities, and he's kind of it felt like a classic kind of Han and Chewie adventure. Chewie being his co-pilot. We had that great moment where Amelia Clark, where Kira is saying, "Yeah, well, you do that thing." Like, she has no idea what she's doing in the co-pilot seat because and of course, Chewie's been flying for 190 years old. Oh, you look great. You can fly like a pro. Anyway, so they get through they make the Kessel Run little pun. Of course, they fuel up and they're transferring the fuel into the coaxium, and they have the aftermath where Tiki takes through the aftermath.
Oh. Yeah, the aftermath is basically just Lando kind of riling on Han, just like, I hate you. I never want to see you again. Which, honestly, Dragon, I like what they do with Lando in the final scene of this movie, which is kind of like bringing it back around to that.
It would have been sad had they not done that final scene. Would have been a little.
I'll agree with that. I just think the whole like I hate you thing. It's a little bit too on the nose, but I'll give it a pass. I'm not a big fan of it, but
I read more as like, "Oh, I hate you." It's like a more like friendly, like banter thing. Like, "Oh, I hate you. Look what you did to my beautiful." He's like, Lando's in a bad mood. He just lost one of his closest friends. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
Lando's entitled to a bad mood today.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's get to Act 3.
All right, let's see Act 3. So, oh god, so let's talk
we gotta talk about this character on the whole here. So, Enfys Nest.
Oh boy, oh what a fucking train wreck.
Okay, so let me say it. So again, before we have this reveal, basically the Cloud Riders and Enfys Nest, that's a cool character. That's a character I like. So all the stuff in like Act 1, that's kind of neat. I mean, nothing like it was like
this movie's Boba Fett up until when it's not Boba Fett anymore.
And of course, this is a reveal that completely takes away what we thought it was, because what Beckett said they were pirates, essentially space pirates. And that was a cool idea. It's kind of an in between bounty hunters and smugglers.
It's like no, they're the rebellion. They're just totally the good guys, and we're just supposed to entirely flip to their side.
Yeah, again, so we have two reveals.
I hope you don't buy this bullshit, Dragon. I really hope you don't.
No, I'm with you. I think I'm with you, like maybe 90% of it. I'm with you.
Okay, good. That makes me better.
Basically, we have two reveals here. Let's start. Okay, the first reveal, of course, the girl reveal is completely pointless.
Dragon, I remember sitting there in the theater just being like, and my dad was confused too. My dad was like, is it his daughter? Like, he thought it was Woody Harrelson's daughter. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's just a totally just out of left field, like, I could see Robot Chicken M. Night Shyamalan just sitting there being like, what a twist? Just kind of saying what a twist in a questioning way,
So with the other reveal, the whole they're kind of the beginning of the rebels and everything. They're kind of like quite possibly, I think what they're saying is like they're the beginning of the rebellion that will then kind of get to the if I'm right, the evolution of the rebellion is you have this. You have the Star Wars Rebels TV show, and then you have Rogue One. I think that's how the Rebel kind of like flow chart goes. I think that's how it goes. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. The point is, I like what the rebellion thing allows for. I'm not crazy about it in itself because it undercuts the stuff we had in the first act. Where okay, these pirates are dangerous, and of course there's a risk with the smuggler job. Because basically, what they're kind of saying here, it's not like a smart thing they're saying here. Where like, hey, we killed your friends because. I don't know. It's that they're not. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. The best phrases here is that okay. So we kill two of the crew, two of Beckett's crew in the beginning, and they did this, and they make no apologies for it. And while that does seem like a head scratcher, okay, so now we're working with these guys. By the same token, it's kind of like, hey, you were working against our needs, so yes, we killed. Your guys died. One of them committed suicide. To be fair, the other guy though, he was in our way, so we had to shoot him. It's kind of cost of doing business.
I don't know. I mean, it's just. I guess
I don't like it. I'm just saying. I think it's.
I had a conversation with a coworker about this, and he brought up a good point where it's essentially kind of like a more fleshed out version of what they were trying to do with Diego Luna in Rogue One, where it's like the whole idea of like being in a rough life from a young age. It's just it really doesn't work. It just really doesn't land.
And again, I don't think you're wrong about that at all. I think again, I'm just trying to find maybe a little bit of logic there, but no, you're right. But the one here's what I like that it allows for though, and again, they walk the line with this, and I think they balance themselves okay on this. Is that the main reason we have the whole rebellion reveal is present Han with like this kind of this chance, kind of give Han this chance, kind of present him with like a moment of change almost, where he doesn't really take. And again, it walks a line, so it's not perfect, but I think it walks a line. I think it balanced itself on here, where Han Han makes the decision of like, okay, let's not give this to Voss slash the Empire because they get all this fuel, bad stuff's a coming. And they could have made this more overt and they didn't. And I think it's what it sold more people on it because this could be a big potential plot hole. This could be. Or why the heck does Han work with the good guys? Because that stuff for years later. And that was my only big fear in the trailer and the marketing for all this is that we had this scene out of context where Kira's saying, Han Solo, I know you. You're a good person. And thankfully, the movie does not does not do it the way I thought they were going to do it. Where in the movie, it's we see Han get from point A to point B. We don't just kind of randomly say, hey, you're going to be a good guy in the future, like that out of context scene implies.
Sure.
Because again, that'll basically do the arc that we have years later, like right now, which again would completely defeat the purpose of it. But I think what they're saying here, the way I read, is that Han is serving his own interest here on two levels. That one, he's doing this because he's doing this for his best interest with Kira, despite Voss. Like, okay, so Dryden Voss, he's done terrible things to Kira with branding her and kind of doing bad stuff to her within 3 years. Again, he doesn't know all the details, but he's assuming this. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to give Voss the field because he's a bad guy. He's going to do bad things, and again, Kira will be part of those bad things. Basically, he wants to take down Voss so he can save Kira. That's the plan. That's the main reason he works with the rebels here. The other reason is that it's kind of a survival conscience. Like, hey, if the Empire gets more powerful, then it's going to make my job a lot harder. So again, I think if they hit those a little more overtly, I think that would make a little bit more sense. But again, I think there's enough of it there. It's like it's following where he's gone in the arc of he wants the happy ending with the girl and he wants to keep on breathing. So speaking of the fuel, okay, the big fuel gambit of it all. Not Taylor Kitsch. No, the big fuel gambit of it all here.
Yeah, I already mentioned that I really like how Paul Bettany kind of lures them into a false sense of security in this scene. It's like, he's one step ahead of them from the start, but he's not just going to immediately be like, hey, I know what you guys are up to.
Oh, by the way, two things with Paul Bettany, with the Dryden Voss I want to mention real quick. One, I love the earlier scene where Han's bargaining with the guy, and we kind of miss two great Han moments here, where he's bargaining with the guy way early on, where he's basically inferring what he wants to hear and just suggesting this to Beckett, yeah, and basically Voss is like, oh yeah, he's cocky, I like that.
Oh.
The other scene, of course, the big Lando moment where Lando leaves him. Han's like, there are 30 guys on that ship.
That was great, and I just love the idea that Lando is so indifferent and pissed off about the situation that he just leaves without getting paid.
That scene is so well timed. I would imagine that's a Lord Miller. That's a guess, though. But I'm just saying that's so well timed. That's so funny. It's a perfect little moment there. Where it's like early Han in a nutshell. Or he's bluffing like he's bluffing like there's no more. It's a good bluff, but until Lando leaves and completely undercutting, he steps back into formation. No, go on. Say what you're saying. It's funny. Anyway, so the big. So I love the. So here's the other thing that people could write that people have been saying, it's predictable, or that, hey, are you surprised that Beckett betrayed Han? I'd say they accounted for that here because Han knew that Beckett was going to betray him. Therefore, it's not going by the numbers. It's like Han was anticipating Beckett's betrayal. That's why he gave him the real fuel. I'm surprised people didn't quite pick that up.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. The whole thing with me is I just feel like it was a little bit too hammered in with the dialogue. Like, hey, don't trust anyone, kid.
And that's why he knew at the end. So
knew. I get that. I just think it was a little too hammered in. You know what I mean? It's fine the way it is. It's not like a huge gripe. Like, I don't hate it. Like, I hate some of the other stuff in this movie, but it's just okay for me.
So, and of course, I like we have this great moment with Beckett, though, and one of Woody Harrelson's finest moments here, where he just he leaves the room, basically, where Voss is trying to spin this, where they realize, okay, we have the actual fuel here, and Beckett, he takes the fuel for himself. It's like it's like a scene from a Western. It's like an every man for himself, like whoever draws first, like he gets the fuel out of the room. It's like the minute he leaves the room, Voss is going to try to kill Han. So I love the tension in the room there. So yeah, that's great. Of course, we have the fight with Voss, and Voss is like intimidating weapons, and like doing his angry face, and it's like, oh my god, so Voss is not a guy to mess with. And again, he has that room full of collectibles. Again, Voss is cool, and also I love his ship. But I love his ship, by the way. I love the idea he has a base that's on the move constantly, and basically he was traveling to where the fuel's being processed. Like they didn't go to him, like he came to them. It was kind of a little neat moving
Oh,
ship idea. It's like if you're a crime boss, you don't want to be in the same location all the time. You're on the move.
right, right.
All
All
right, so
right.
I guess the big one of the big iconic Han moments here.
Han shot first, god damn it.
We know it.
Oh,
So
Dragon, I think this is a good example of fan service done right. It's like
yeah.
we knew that it was going to happen at some point in this movie, but they really nailed it. Like if they needed a Han shot first moment, this is about the best way they could have done it.
Oh yeah. I love how he had. I love kind of the perverse. If Han's going on somewhat of like his own version of a Luke arc, I like that in Han's version of that, he had to shoot his mentor to complete his training, not watch his mentor die in front of him. He had to shoot his mentor to
Right.
complete his training. It's kind of it's twisted. It's kind of like Kingsman level. It's like a Kingsman level like graduation thing, where to be basically accept your path, you're going to have to be the guy who shoots first, and that's kind of what Beckett's preparing him for. It's like, yeah, you learn, kid. So, I mean, I really love where we leave Han by the end of this movie. I really like this scene, kind of the big reveal after the scene here, where he sees what's happened with Kira, where basically he learns that Beckett was absolutely right, and that he lost Kira, he can't trust anybody, and it's like the perfect. It's very like film noirish. Again, while it's a western in many aspects, it's also kind of a film noir in relation to the love stories, the whole Maltese Falcon of it all, where you trust the woman that you think that you love, and of course she's she Han and Kira are faced with like moments of opportunity and change where Han he stuck with the smuggler path.
Mm.
And Kira, she didn't go with him. She didn't become his Val. She kind of took power for herself. He accepts the smuggler's path and he moves on. He accepts that. Well, I'm let down by this. I'm not angry. I'm just like she's going on a different path, and Beckett was right, so I got to accept that and move on. And hence Han becoming Solo.
God.
Okay, but no, in all seriousness, so let's with that in mind, let's I guess get the Kira.
Yeah, so let's talk about the big reveal, right?
Yes, the big reveal. So Kira, she's now out for herself. She chose power, and she takes her moment of change and kind of lets her trauma, like being under a Dryden Voss's thumb, being branded and kind of having a lot of bad things to her name. Like she was his lieutenant, not just like his slave or anything. She was complicit in a lot of bad stuff
I
that
do
he
like
did.
that there's elements of like workplace sexual harassment in this movie, though, and that's a good example of like kind of addressing social politics in a subtle kind of way.
Sure, and she's kind of let her trauma define her, and that's what's motivated. So basically, she kind of didn't take the path of healing and moving forward with Han. She's moving forward in a darker direction, and in doing so, she takes over Voss's job, which puts her in, which now makes her defer to a big familiar face, Deacon. Who is that big familiar face?
Jar Jar Binks.
No.
Darth Maul Dragon, and I am one of the world's biggest Darth Maul fans. All right, I love Darth Maul. So this is just the ultimate example of like, all right, Clone Wars is canon now, folks. Clone Wars, if there was any doubt, it's officially canon.
To be fair, we already knew it was canon, but
I know, I know. I'm just saying it's nice to have like in movie confirmation of that.
yeah, you're right. That is pretty cool.
So what can I say? It's just like that was a moment for me. It's like much how like with Jurassic Park trailers, every time I see a new dinosaur that hasn't been in a Jurassic Park movie, I'm like, oh my god, a Carnotaurus! I'm sold. Take my
So
money.
now it's a Carnotaurus with robot legs.
Well, yeah, but
But
I also like how they kind of made it seem like it was going to be the Emperor, and then it's just like, nope, nope. Someone, with all due respect to the Emperor, someone a little bit more fan servicey.
oh yeah, so I get a sense that my summation is that Crimson Dawn is named as such because it's serving their Red Master, Crimson, Darth Maul.
I assume so.
Now here's the thing. So I looked into this, Tiki, in case you're wondering, because I know it's been a long time since you watched Clone Wars, and I dropped off at a certain point. But I had to do
Oh,
some research.
I've barely seen any Clone Wars Dragon.
Well, so basically, so Darth Maul, and this is all, and this all fits into that series from what everything I could find here, because he's in Clone Wars, and has the end of his arc is in Rebels. So again, basically the continue, Maul does have like a really cool ending to his story that again we see what happens with him in Rebels, and on the whole, it's that he gets robot legs in Clone Wars, and then basically he goes on his revenge path, which is basically in this movie is ties into the Rebels stuff. He gets the legs in Clone Wars, and he becomes like a boss with a revenge agenda in Rebels.
Uh-huh.
And essentially, he definitely has a grudge against Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like one of his big plot lines that he's searching for Obi-Wan Kenobi to get his revenge for being cut in half. And now again, there's some other stuff which I won't bore you. I won't bore you with Darth Maul. Yeah, we'll see if the movies go about this. The one interesting thing to see is that again, Clone Wars, from what we've been told and what we kind of see here, is that Clone Wars and Rebels are in canon, and in doing that, we may they have to introduce certain Rebels characters if they want to just adapt moments from Rebels, which I don't think they're going to do. I think they're just going to kind of like do other things with Maul on screen. Like not just they're not going to retcon things, just tell everything but the eventual stuff that happens with Maul. Like can't do
Uh-huh.
everything with. Anyway, the point is basically Maul's out to get revenge on both Jedi and Sith. So he's going to turn on the Sith, which is probably why I surmise, and you bear in mind I don't know everything about Maul in these series. I'm just saying what the movie's presenting us here with is that he's building his own criminal network to take down both the Jedi and the Sith. At this point, mainly the Sith, who of course is
So
the
we're
big.
almost kind of mirroring Kylo Ren in a way.
In a way, yes. So again, Maul has the point is Maul he definitely became more interesting after he was cut in half in the story, and that's definitely what we seem to be kind of mining here. I will say this though with Maul, it's great to see him. I was really psyched to see him. However, I will praise a lot of the fan service stuff in this movie. The one fan service thing I will say is that was overkill lightsaber.
Really?
Again,
Really? Out of all the fan service stuff, you thought that the dual lightsaber is like his signature.
it really needed in the hologram to to
I
emphasize.
God, I'm just saying, with all the other ridiculous fan service stuff we get in this movie, that's the thing you're gonna pick apart.
Honestly, of all the movies we can do without a lightsaber, this would be one of them because we have a lightsaber in every Star Wars movie. Like the one movie we could have got away with without a lightsaber. I think
Okay,
people
to be fair, this is the first Star Wars movie without 3PO and R2D2.
true. I'll give you that. You're right about that. It's just yes, without those two. But I'm just saying the lightsabers. Like again, Han Solo famously. Well, then again, Han Solo's like the only one before Finn to wield a lightsaber on the big screen. So okay, I'll give you that. But I don't know. A little fun fact though, and this is like a big Clone Wars nod. The Rebels nod, I guess. He's not using the original twin lightsaber. He's using like a new
Yep,
model of it.
I noticed that. Yeah.
That's definitely from the Rebels thing, where you
Oh,
see how he gets that lightsaber and everything. So they're definitely pulling from that material. So anyway, I don't know. All I'm saying is like it doesn't kill the movie for me. It's just I'm saying I would agree with what people are saying about we oversold Maul a little bit with the red lightsaber. Look, I don't mean to say it was like a thing that like ruined the movie for me. I'm just saying that's the one thing I would agree with people saying. Yeah, it's fan service in like a negative way. Like,
all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
right, so let's talk about the ending.
Yeah, so I do like how by the end of the movie we have that classic dynamic of like, Han, you rotten, dirty scoundrel, you come here, you pirate. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? We
the
get that
old
kind of like
pirate.
the love-hate dynamic, like really nailed down.
Exactly. And of course, Hans ticked off that, hey, you maybe look bad, maybe look bad and you abandoned me during all that stuff. So, by the way, this is kind of a fun little connection to a smuggler's trade we get here in this scene where we see. Okay, so basically we have this great little bit here where again now that Han's onto Lando's con about he basically holds the winning card up his sleeve, and again this is very similar to a great idea in the smuggler's trade where Han is cheating with something up his sleeve, just like Lando here. So again, if kind of a little in deep cut wish fulfillment for Tiki and I of like hey, Solo, smuggler's trade, New Hope, huh?
God, right, right.
I was saying, yeah, like it works perfectly because okay, there's where he got the up the sleeve trick from. It got it from Lando.
Yeah,
That's
you're right.
neat.
You're right.
So basically, basically when he got in that hug with Lando, which of course the old pirate thing from Empire, he snuck away his card and then leaving Lando high and dry, and
Oh,
he
he pulled a Huel dragon. He pulled a Huel.
yes, he did. Oh my God, yes. I love that he won the Falcon back because again, he won it fair and square in the beginning. Again, what happens to Lando kind of serves him right. You were cheating in the first place, and Han out cheats the cheater. It's great. So then we hint at Chewie and Han. They're back in the saddle. They won the ship. They're in the ship, and they're flying to Tatooine, presumably to work for Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the movie.
All right.
All right. So I guess again, we've already spoken to if they do an Obi-Wan movie. Of course,
I really do think at the end of the day, like, forget about a Han Solo movie too. Like, forget about that. That's not going to happen. This movie is the biggest financial disaster in the history of Star Wars.
unless Disney really wants to save face and just say, "Look at all this Star Wars money we got here. We have money. We can lose money. We have 3 Star Wars movies bomb. We'd still be rich."
Just like a picture of Kylo Ren burning $100 bill.
We got Incredibles 2 coming out. We got money coming up all over the place. Incredibles 2. Did you see Infinity War?
Okay.
We got another one coming. Can you believe it? Anyway.
And people are even saying that the fucking Christopher Robin movie looks amazing, which it does, by the way.
I know. I'm super excited for that, by the way. Anyway, so the point is that Disney, if they really wanted to spite people, they could say, "Yeah, we're doing those Han Solo movies just for the fun of it." Anyway, it's down.
Okay, here's the thing. I've already expressed that, like, for a character that's gotten a grand total of, like, 9 lines of dialogue through 2 movies, Boba Fett, the movie, is a terrible idea. I think Boba Fett would work perfectly as a main villain to a side movie. I really think that a Kenobi trilogy is the way to go with this, because with a Kenobi trilogy, you can do the continuing adventures of Han Solo, you can do Boba Fett, you can do the Jabba the Hutt and the Tatooine underworld, you can continue the Darth Maul stuff. It's just everything is set up there. And of course, I love the idea of Ewan McGregor reprising his role as Obi-Wan. That'd just be a really, really cool kind of legacy thing to happen.
Right. So, okay, first of all, I'm very in favor of the Boba Fett movie.
Really? Really? You're very, like, I understand if you're like, yeah, I could see it working, but you're very in favor of One Dragon?
I'm saying the James Mangold thing's really, it make me really in favor of that.
Okay, but you can't say that James Mangold would be a better fit for an Obi-Wan movie.
Well, you're right about that. I'm just saying the fact that Mangold's involved. I mean, look, Mangold involved in Obi-Wan, that'd be perfect, because that's exactly what I want in this world. I want him to be involved in Obi-Wan. I'm just saying the fact that Mangold is going to be taking on Boba Fett, which again, that's a character that could, if done improperly, could end up being what people have been, the most negative critics of Solo have been saying Solo could be. I'm saying there's going to be a lot of, you got to remember, there's going to be a lot of Star Wars fan attention on Boba Fett. And everyone's, even if they really turn their backs on Star Wars after this movie, they're going to show up for Boba Fett. You know they are in droves. And if they get Boba Fett wrong at that many times, like, they literally can't miss with Boba Fett in the way he's such an undefined character. You could add all this great stuff in his backstory, and or he could like do more further. Again, honestly, they bring him out of the Sarlacc pit. That's kind of that'd be the.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, Dragon. If the movie is about him post Sarlacc pit, that's an entirely different conversation.
I know, and the fact is, we don't know. And I have faith in Mangold. The Mangold
that's where we differ, Dragon. That's where we differ. I absolutely do not have faith that management would do that. To me, it's just going to be another dumb prequel with a bunch of fan service that we don't need.
All right, look, my point. I'll say this much. Okay, so I think. Honestly, I think Mangold fills me with I was open to the Boba Fett movie regardless. And it's like, again, if Boba Fett's done right, again, if done right and done successfully, again, even taking the Mangold out of the equation, I'm saying period, whatever you do with Boba Fett, if they crack the code on, they could be, Star Wars would have their equivalent to a Deadpool with Boba Fett if they're lucky. If they do it right, they could do like a bounty hunter spin-off movie, which is like a whole movie about bounty hunters, and Boba Fett's kind of our Deadpool in that movie.
Sure.
Again, if they get their stuff right, and hey, I'm open to both ways of approaching it. I'm just saying I think the smartest, kind of the best serving way. And again, I think Mangold, I could buy. Again, just think about this: Logan's a movie set in the future, where you could have that with Boba Fett set post Sarlacc pit. I mean, I could see basically doing Logan with Boba Fett. Like what do we do after him, and go into the future. Basically, Boba Fett could be our insight to the transitional shift between Jedi and Force Awakens. We could see kind of Boba Fett going forward.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And again, without doing like the Luke Skywalker. I mean, but if we wanted to work, Mark Hamill never could use that the youth technology on him, or get Sebastian Stan maybe, huh?
Oh God! All right, all right.
You know that Sebastian Stan thing, but you've seen the comparisons. You've seen the said these the young Luke Skywalker and with the get the hair on. Okay, anyway, the point is. Anyway, so Obi-Wan though. Okay, so Obi-Wan absolutely. If I could ever have one Star Wars movie, anthology movie, it has to be Obi-Wan, and Ewan McGregor wants to do it. Everybody wants to do it. They get to have the Hutts. I've always said basically do Shane, do kind of a Western, like the newcomer in town Western with a mix of the Godfather with the kind of the underworld with the Hutts. Now we have Darth Maul has a revenge motive against Obi-Wan. He's probably contracting the Hutts to go after Obi-Wan, like telling everyone to look out for him. Perhaps he hires somebody like Boba Fett in the movie who has a grudge against Jedi's who killed his father in front of him, decapitated him in front of him.
Right, right.
You never know. So again, beyond all the Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan, those are things I'm excited for and would love to see. And that's probably the venue we'd get young Han in, either in the Boba Fett movie or in the Obi-Wan movie. Most likely the Boba Fett movies, I bet you that we're going to see a young Han Solo.
Oh, I'm sure we will, yeah.
If it's set in the past,
like, even the harshest critics of this movie don't really complain about Alden Ehrenreich Dragon. Alden Ehrenreich is not the problem with this movie.
Yeah, like definitely. If the Boba Fett movie is set in the past, we're definitely going to get young Han. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind we're going to get young Han. No, honestly, I'd love to see Lando and Lobot and kind of like I think here's the thing. I think the smart, ambitious movie to do in the future, but I don't know if they're going to do it because it depends like how smart they are in accounting for the box office and everything. If they're going to have the guts to do this, which unfortunately I'm doubting because of the box office return. But if they're gutsy, we're going to have like a Lando movie, with Lobot and just see kind of a smart and ambitious. Just basically, it could be. I'm not trying to just go for something obvious here, but it could be like a Black Panther for Star Wars if they're lucky.
With Cloud City and everything.
With what?
With Cloud City being the Wakanda.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We could see him forming a Wakanda in Cloud City. Basically go to this place and kind of bond with the people and kind of turn into like a glorious utopian place and see like basically be a political thriller almost.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, last thing. There's a big theory going on here. I want to get your thoughts on it. Kira as Rey's mom. Do you buy it at all as a possibility?
Oh, boo! Boo! No, just no. I don't even want to. No.
Well, I'm not saying Han's the father. I'm just saying.
No, I understand that, but no. I hate those kind of plot twists. No,
right.
No.
Okay. Well, at the very least, let's take the whole again. Forget the whole Rey's mom thing. But regardless with Kira, I do definitely want to see like her and Darth Maul's story going forward. I want to see like her role in the Syndicate. That'd be kind of cool.
My whole thing with that, Dragon, is like every time you do a fucking gimmicky plot twist like that, it makes the universe smaller. It does nothing but make the universe smaller.
You with the parentage thing, or do you mean we're just bringing her back?
With the parentage thing,
right? Well. Yeah, I'll give you that. Oh, I guess let me ask you this then, because I was watching something with Plinkett and it kind of reminded me of this. What if she's like a forced conception, by the way? Because that would make everything that we've had revealed about Rey with The Last Jedi make sense, where she doesn't really necessarily have parents, but she's kind of like Kylo wouldn't know all the details about it, and she wouldn't necessarily have parents if she was like forced conceived like Anakin was.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't feel like going down the Rey parenting.
Right. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so the point is always like just some theories are on my mind with the whole ending. Okay, so let's wrap this puppy up. Final thoughts, Tiki. What do you think about the movie at the end of the day?
I mean, fine. Like ultimately, it's fine, Dragon. All right, it's fine. It's like it's completely inoffensive, but it's completely unremarkable. And I just think that this is a hard lesson that Disney needs to learn. And honestly, like you said, I think with Boba Fett, it's just going to be an issue of like, if it's post Sarlacc pit, that means they're taking risks with it. That means I'm interested in it. If it's pre Sarlacc pit, I might not even see it in theaters. But with Solo itself, I really do think that the fact that you and I are both like salivating over the thought of a disaster artist tell-all book about this movie kind of says it all, right? It's like, I feel like at the end of the day, the behind-the-scenes drama with this movie is going to be more memorable than the movie itself. The movie itself is just fine. It's just kind of like, all right, like that was inoffensive popcorn entertainment for 2 hours. You know, it's like it's definitely the most. I don't even want to say it's disappointing, but I will say that I had my expectations set. You know, I didn't have my expectations set like Infinity War levels or anything like that, but the trailer did get me. You know, especially the I have a really good feeling about this moment in the trailer. That like all that stuff really got me, and I don't think the movie itself kind of represented the high that that moment gave me. So at the end of the day, it's just like it's just a very, very paint by numbers summer blockbuster fare, and like it's kind of funny that in four films we've already gotten to the point of Star Wars fatigue where the MCU is 20 films deep and they're just going strong, and it just kind of, you know, it kind of goes to show we really need to change something up here.
All right. For me, you know, look, I'm the film. It's not setting the world on fire, but you know, it's a harmless tribute to Han Solo. At the end of the day, I feel, you know, it's fan service that I feel like a big Star Wars fan will. I don't know. Again, I think at least I don't want. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of rethinking my phrasing here because look, I mean, I got a sense of the first watch and it's coming out the first time. I got a sense because you know, a room full of Star Wars fans, everyone was coming out of it, enjoying it. And you know, I was too, and even then, I'm still enjoying kind of talking about it and enjoying the you know enjoying the moments, enjoying the experience, enjoying kind of like just kind of the fun kind of adventure, the harmless adventure of it all. And I think if you showed someone who was just like just not familiar with Star Wars, oh, this just has kind of like kind of the fun kind of atmosphere of a Star Wars film. Not to the same extent, not to the same sophistication, but it just kind of has like that kind of a very surface level Star Wars enjoyment factor. So if you showed someone who knew nothing about Star Wars, you kind of have they go into this and just kind of get like, okay, I kind of get a sense of this Han Solo character. Then you show them a New Hope, like, okay, that's where it all comes from. This is even better. So it's kind of harmless in that way.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of it's kind of an expand it's kind of close to an expanded universe story on screen in a way that it's nice yet not needed. And of course, I'm not saying again there are some expanded universe stories that from what I hear are amazing, and of course some that we're actually including, like with the Darth Maul thing, we're including into the bigger picture, and we're going to develop hopefully in the future. So I think this opens again with stuff like that. I think it opens bigger avenues to explore in the end. So again, the film that's the main takeaway for the grander Star Wars picture. We've opened some new avenues to explore. We've kind of explored the world a little bit more, and just kind of Han Solo is just kind of our vehicle to do that. And you know, as is, it's still what I wanted to see, and I just wanted to see kind of the iconic Han Solo moments, and I had that Ron Howard earnestness to it, and I could see that in the places where I was really, you know, I could see that in places, and in places that I didn't really have to wonder where was Lord Miller. I mean, it could by all means be Lord Miller. That kind of ambiguity is a little bit irritating with the movie. But again, I think the big moments that really hit me, I could see as like, okay, those are Ron Howard moments. Like, you know, the gambling scene with Lando, that's a Ron Howard scene because Clint Howard's there. We know it's a Ron Howard scene. And you know, again, that like the kind of the American graffiti Americana of it all, like those racing scenes felt pretty, you know, again felt kind of classic Ron Howard to me. So I like that. Again, it's like there's an earnestness and a sincerity about it, and again, that's really what I kind of enjoyed most about the movie. And you know, I guess not everybody's cup of tea. On a character level, I think I like a smidge more than Rogue One. But again, with Rogue One, it's the third act is what kind of that makes the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So many ways, and you just have like the story appeal of Rogue One. But again, it's just as a character piece, like I could rewatch this and just kind of enjoy it. But again, I absolutely understand all the criticism, and I don't fault anyone who's feeling like a different way. I mean, I get it. Again, it is not a sophisticated Star Wars story, but you know, it's a fun one.
All right. Well, folks, thank you for joining us. Hopefully the next spoiler cast that we do, which is for The Incredibles 2, will not be so like, yeah, it was okay. Wouldn't that just break your heart, Dragon?
Well, what break my heart?
But I am fully expecting the spoiler cast for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom to be kind of in the same vein. So, I don't know. You take what you get.
Let's give BD Wong that Amber Cane. It would be amazing.
All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. Kill him slower!